6:30 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order and declare it open. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You're required to vacate the building at the rear entrance and gather in the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is the council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is any person permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area is deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any person present with a disability to vacate the building. Item 1.1, apology of absence. Mr. CEO, is there any apologies?
Mr Mayor, there's no apologies, but Councillor Duffy has submitted an apology for lateness due to his work commitments, and also Councillor Greenhalgh is attending online.
Thank you. Can I have somebody move? Moved by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Judge. All in favour? Carried. Live streaming and recording. This council's meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting, that you ensure that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. Recording of the council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to ask Councillor Ruddy to conduct the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are meeting on Wiradjuri land, a place that has been cared for, shared and nurtured for thousands of years. The Wiradjuri people's connection to this country runs deep through language, story and culture and continues strongly today. As someone who calls Orange home, I feel grateful for that stewardship and the way that shapes the community we all share. I pay my respects to Wiradjuri elders past and present and recognise the strength and wisdom of young Wiradjuri leaders coming through today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 1.4, Declaration of Interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting tonight? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 5.3, development application DA 771/2024 in brackets 1, 80 Road, Springside. I sit on the Western Region Planning Panel, so I will leave the room and not partake in that item.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peterson.
Non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in 5.4 because of my long history as a youth member and adult leader with the scouting movement. I'm happy I can stay in the room and be objective.
Thank you. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare non-significant, non-pecuniary conflict of interest in 5.3, development application DA's 771, 140 Cadia Road, Springside. The owner of the property is my son's boss, but it has nothing to do in relation to his business. It's just the property itself, so I will be staying in the room to vote on that.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Item 5.3 also for me, the development application Cadia Road. Two interests, both non-significant and non-pecuniary. One, I am a member and shareholder of the Central West Renewable Energy Co-op, which will own part of a project at Mitchell Highway, which is also owned by the applicant, EDPR. Have no direct connection at all to this project. They're entirely separate and have no involvement directly with EDPR, so I consider that non-significant. And also I am a member of Environmentally Concerned Citizens of Orange, who've made a submission on the proposal. ECHO have made their submission out of interest in environmental issues and interests that I share, but they don't have any direct involvement or benefit to be gained from the proposal, so I also consider that non-significant. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further? Okay, we'll move forward. Opening prayer, I would like to welcome Mr. Tim Goldsmith from the Evangelical Centre to lead us into council prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. For those for whom it's your practice, I invite you to bow your heads as we pray. Begin with a short verse from Paul's second letter to Timothy. First of all, then, I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions and thanksgivings be made for everyone, for kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. Our Lord, in keeping with Paul's request, we thank you for elected officials, whether at a federal, a state, or at a local level. And we thank you particularly for your servants here tonight. Having been called to this office, we pray that you would bless the work of their hands. And we pray for wisdom and discernment and ask that they would look beyond their personal desires and seek the good of our community. We also pray for all people bringing their requests to Council this evening. We pray for calm hearts, clear thoughts, and contentment with the outcomes. And finally, at a time where we see immense political tension throughout the world, nations at war, people starving, others being assassinated, we thank you for the blessing of stable government that we enjoy in Australia, that we don't take for granted. We thank you for the freedom we have to take dissenting positions without fear of persecution. And we pray that we might be mindful of our many blessings and prayerful toward those who do not know this peace. And we pray this in the name of the Prince of Peace. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of open forum. When addressing the council, speakers at the public forum must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and all other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct, or making other potential defamatory statements. I ask all of you to be respectful of the chamber and all here tonight. We have 6 registered speakers for tonight. You'll be permitted 5 minutes speaking time. A warning bell will sound at the end of 4 minutes. Our first speaker is addressing item 5.4, small donations. That's Mr. Grant Caffin from Scouts, Golden West Region. If you'd like to come up to the microphone, sir. Before you start, I'd just like to introduce you to the councillors. On Zoom, I have Deputy Mayor Councillor Tammy Greenhalgh. As I go around the table, I have Councillor Whitten, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard. We go across the table, we have Councillor Ruddy, Councillor Stedman, Councillor Judge, Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Peterson. So you have 5 minutes if you'd like to start.
Thank you for having me here tonight as a speaker. I just wanted to come along to provide some extra information that was requested regarding our application for a small donation. It's for a scout camp out at Broken Hill, which is going to be a scout camp for the entire Golden West region Scouts. So we've got a total of 170 participants going to the camp, and 40 of those will be coming from Orange. And so the request is to help with the costs of transport out to Broken Hill. Obviously, it's quite a way to go. And we've arranged to hire buses to take some of our youth members out, and also to use trains and the public bus network for the trip out and back again. So we'll be hiring 2 22-seater buses for 9 days from the 27th of September. And part of that will be to transport us out there using volunteer drivers. And we'll also use those buses while we're out at the camp to go to different activities close to Broken Hill. And we're using a variety of transport out there because we're actually departing on different days and coming back on different days, because we've got youth from 5 years old through to 18. So the older youth are going for a longer period. They'll be travelling out on the hired buses to start with. And then the younger youth will go out on the train a little bit later with their parents. And yeah, we weren't able to get public bus services and that would cover all the dates that we needed. What else? Right, and I think the only other thing I wanted to say was that we'd had a a region camp out at Camp Canobolas in 2022 that was quite successful. And yeah, so we want to see as many Orange youth as we can get out to Broken Hill to help support them having an event out there, which they haven't had a large scout event out there for 20 or 30 years, I think. So yeah, thank you for having me. If you've got any questions regarding it, I'm happy to try and answer that as best as I can. I'm sort of standing in for the camp chief who's away tonight. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Any questions, councillors? Being none, we'll move on.
Thank you.
The next speaker is an item 5.3, development application DA 771/2024 in brackets 140 Cadia Road. And we have Mr. Tony McPaul, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Mayor, good evening. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me acknowledge that I understand the planning system reasonably well, and I understand that council is not the body that approves this project or disapproves, whichever the case may be. That's the job of the Western Regional Planning Panel. My family and I moved to Orange over 20 years ago, and for the big majority of that time we've lived at 170A Cadia Road. We've been lucky enough to purchase 170 Cadia Road and also 168 Cadia Road. Now, just to put that in perspective, my boundary fence is less than 15 metres from where the first solar panel is proposed to go. I strongly encourage Orange City Council to make a submission to the Western Regional Planning Panel opposing this solar farm development at 140 Cadia Road, Springside, for the following reasons. Development application, the EIS, and the associated studies have been completed the minimum standard required and are, in my opinion, not best practice or to the standard that I would expect for a project of this scale that is located in a potentially contaminated site and in such a sensitive area. Sensitive from a visual, road safety, Orange drinking water security point of view. Has anyone ground truthed to check that what's included in these reports, which must have been completed at desktop study, is correct? I'll answer that. I believe the answer to that is no. In particular, I question the accuracy of the visual impact assessment, the surface water impact assessment, and the road safety implications of this project. Is this council prepared to allow a developer who has used a minimalistic approach rather than best practice to this point in time for this development application, carry out works on a potentially contaminated site that has the potential to mobilise contamination into Orange's drinking water system, increase the risk to road users, and negatively impact on the scenic value of our city? There has been no consultation with us as adjoining neighbours by either the proponent, council staff, or the Western Regional Planning Panel. The EIS and Council's assessment report refer to the large-scale solar energy guideline on several occasions. Yet when it comes to consultation, it says it's not a requirement. Not a requirement, why? Because that would be best practice. Good luck working with a developer if this project is approved, given their lack of interest in engaging with their closest neighbours and the broader community. Is this how we do business in Orange in this day and age? Push these developments through without any input or consultation from those who know the area best and just might have some idea on how to minimise the impacts to help achieve best practice. can I quote from the large-scale solar energy guideline, which if used in its entirety rather than selectively, may have helped achieve best practice outcomes. Forgive me if you've already read this, but I think it's really important. Although large-scale solar energy projects are the focus of this guideline, applicants, councils, and planning panels are encouraged to consider the objectives and the principles when preparing, assessing, and determining solar energy development applications for regionally significant developments. The assessment process and the level of detail required in a statement of environmental effects should be proportionate to the scale of the development and the likely impacts. This is not a small-scale project. This comprises of 32,000 solar panels, capital spend of $16 million, with a estimated project life of 35 years. Why should you as councillors, or us as the residents of Orange, accept anything less than best practice projects in our wonderful city? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. The next speaker is Mr. Nick King from Environmentally Concerned Citizens of Orange.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, council staff, and ladies and gentlemen of the gallery, thank you for the opportunity to address the community forum tonight. I do so on behalf of Environmentally Concerned Citizens of Orange, known as ECHO. Now, ECHO is an environment group which is a strong advocate for local environmental values. Our usual purpose for addressing this forum is to oppose development if we consider there's environmental issues associated with it. However, tonight I'm delighted to be able to appear before you to support a development proposal for a change, which of course is the DA for the solar installation proposed for 140 Cadia Road. ECHO supports this development application for the following reasons. Firstly, we need urgent action on climate. Yesterday saw the release of the Climate Risk Assessment Report, which some of you may have read, which makes grim reading. The report warned that the extreme events triggered by increased global warming will increase in frequency and intensity if we do not keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. If we are to be successful in doing this, we obviously must move away from a carbon-based economy to a zero emissions economy as soon as possible. This means we must build more renewable energy projects, such as the one proposed, to replace our coal-fired greenhouse emitting power stations. Secondly, from the EIS that was presented, there seems to be little environmental risk associated with the project. ECHO will support renewable energy initiatives, but they will not support initiatives if they are associated with significant environmental concerns. We're happy to support the Cadia project as the EIS conducted for the site does not indicate any environmental issues of concern. The site in question has been used for agricultural purposes and is devoid of any environmental problems related to either biodiversity or endangered flora and fauna. We support the inclusion of vegetation screening, and we ask that the species considered for screening be chosen to provide habitat which will increase the biodiversity value of the site. One of the things we are concerned about, which has recently been mentioned, is the risks of runoff due to sedimentation. So our only environmental concern about the project is that it's situated only 70 metres from the creek that flows into the Gosling Creek Reservoir, which provides part of Orange's water supply. It is imperative that appropriate measures be taken to ensure that runoff and potential sedimentation is prevented, which of course is possible. Otherwise, we are reassured that the environmental advantages offered by the solar farm outweigh the potential environmental risk. Meeting renewable energy targets. Now, our federal government is due to release our next renewable energy target with the aim to move towards a net zero economy. We're urging the government, we will be urging as an environmental group, the government to be ambitious and aim for a target which is in line with the best scientific advice. Now, regardless of the target, any meaningful action will require the involvement at all levels of government, as well as supportive communities, committed individuals, and a large amount of investment, both from governments and from private investors. If we're to be successful in curbing emissions, projects such as the 140 Cadia Road need to be supported. Now, ECHO will also be addressing the meeting with the Western Region Planning Panel, which, as we've been informed, is the consenting authority. That will happen on September the 30th. We again will be supporting the project. We ask that Council also agree to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Councillors, our next speaker on the same item is Amanda Delaney.
Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, my name's Amanda Delaney. My husband and I are the owners of Rose Cottage at 166 Cadia Road, Springside, identified as OP2 in the visual assessment of this proposal. We are one of the properties most directly impacted. Tonight, I'd like to raise some critical questions that Council must consider in deciding whether to support, oppose, or remain neutral on this development. My first concern is road safety. Cadia and Forest roads are already high traffic routes, carrying locals, school buses and mine workers daily. The Glinton glare study for this project indicates up to 15 minutes of yellow glint per day. That might sound small, but it equates to 105 minutes per week and 91 hours per year. Is that level of added risk acceptable on that busy road or those busy roads? And what about the added strain of visual distraction of near neighbours who live with that every single day? Secondly, visual screening. The applicant proposes screening that has been risen from 3 metres to 5 metres in height along some of the boundaries, but even at 5 metres, that screening is inadequate. Who decided 3 metres was enough? Who decided 5 metres was sufficient? And how will these plantings survive in land that is known to be wet, swampy and prone to saturation? This project is expected to operate for 35 years, yet no evidence has been provided that the proposed screening will be viable or sustainable for that length of time. Thirdly, lack of consultation. On page 124 of Council's planning report, reference is made to private agreements. It notes that no details have been provided by the applicant. I can confirm the reason for that, because there are none. Despite being identified in the visual assessment as a highly impacted neighbour, we have had no contact and no attempt at consultation from the proponent, none whatsoever. For a project of this scale, consultation is not a courtesy, it is a necessity, and it simply hasn't happened. Finally, transparency and process. I find it deeply alarming that this development application has advanced to this stage and that it has been recommended for approval by Council's Planning Department, given the low level of transparency around the project, the inadequate visual impact mitigation, and the total absence of genuine consultation with highly affected neighbours and the wider community. Not to mention the potential impact on Orange drinking water and the added level of risk to road users. Councillors, this project raises fundamental questions of safety, livability and fairness. It fails to provide adequate protection for the community and it fails to engage with those most affected. I urge you to consider the reality on the ground, not just the words on the page, and to stand with the residents who will live with these impacts for decades to come. I urge you to oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next speakers are together and will join us online. We're speaking about item 5.9, the Resilience Project School Wellbeing Program. We have Ben Waterman and Lillian Walsh.
Evening, Mayor, and thanks very much. Sorry, evening, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for the opportunity.
Just hold you up there, sorry. I've missed one speaker in relation to the last item. Apologies. I have Mark Linfield.
Mr Mayor, councillors, I live at 753 Pinnacle Road, so the back of my property adjoins the back of the development. Over the course of the last 12 months, we've been conducting a study in relation to the DDT contamination on my property with the Department of Agriculture. We've run stock for 12 months, moving them around the property. Those stock are FAT tested on Friday, and the results will be up within 2 weeks. To say that the property next door is possibly contaminated is probably ridiculous. The property next door will be contaminated with DDT, just as my property is. So I think that needs to be given quite serious consideration. I'm happy to provide the results of the study when they're out to the relevant authorities in relation to whether we've been successful with the method we've gone about in removing the DDT from the property. Moving on to other things. I planted trees along the back of the property before this DA was put forward. They're to replace cedar deodaras, they're to replace the radiators that were there. I'm concerned about the possibility of being prosecuted by the developer for those trees when those trees reach a point where they're going to influence the system, which is going to be quite quickly. If you look at the design of the system as it stands, there's an area that's been removed because of the overshadowing of one radiator. These trees that have been planted before the DA was mentioned or put in will reach 30, 40, 50 metres in height. And so I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about conducting agricultural activities on my property now which may affect the panels, such if we plant trees and need to spray trees, if we plough and create dust, which affect the effectiveness of the panels. What protects us from being legally prosecuted? That from conducting normal, ordinary agricultural activities. The other thing I'd raise is the issue of the planting. It's going to be several years before any mitigation is received from that planting. Planting should be mature. It should provide mitigation immediately. They're spending $16 million. They should be spending just a bit more money on protecting us. There's very little doubt that this is going to be approved. And so I think that one of the conditions should be that all the planting is mature, and the second condition should be that there's a prevention of any legal action against neighbours for carrying out normal agricultural activities. And that should be protected for the entire 35 years. I don't want to be sued because I plough a paddock on a day that's windy. It has an impact on the panels because dust blows next door and reduces their effectiveness for 3 months, 4 months. That'll be a lot of money. And I shouldn't have to conduct myself with complete consideration for them. The other thing I'm slightly concerned about is that if they're spraying in order to reduce weeds, are they going to do that in consultation with David, who runs the vineyard, with other people who have current agricultural pursuits? There's a period of time that I can spray weeds on my property, and that ceases after bud burst. That ceases because of a consideration between myself and my neighbour. There's no absolute rule. but there's a consideration that I would call David and say, is it okay to spray now? We're not going to receive that consideration from these people on the basis that there's been no consultation at all. Josh was always happy to ring me to get access through my property when he moved machinery. He's had no contact with me in relation to this. It's a disappointing situation. The writing was probably on the wall. The other thing I'd raise is the comments in your report in relation to values of properties. There are a whole load of people who will not want to live next to a solar system of that size. Therefore, it will reduce the number of people who wish to buy a property. Therefore, it will reduce probably the competitiveness to buy the property, which will have an impact upon values. That will affect people forever in this situation. So I would ask you to give consideration to those things, but especially to the possibility of providing mature planting from the start. And secondly, some sort of legal protection for those of us around this system who are going to continue to carry out agricultural pursuits, because we won't have the deep pockets that they have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Councillors, I'll just now go back to our speakers online, and we have from the Resilience Project School Wellbeing Program, Mr. Ben Waterman and Lillian Walsh, and they'll be speaking together when you're ready.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Appreciate you bearing with me with my my false start while we're online. So we'll do our best as we jump into things. But thank you very much for the opportunity to consider our proposal to support the wellbeing of over 2,300 students across your Orange community and as well as their parents. We've had the great fortune of being able to work with these schools since 2021, and some of these schools are now in their 5th year of the program, where we're actually supporting their positive mental health and their overall resilience. And for us, it's certainly been extremely motivating to see the progress that we have made, whilst notwithstanding there's a fair bit of work to be done. So for us at the Resilience Project, we are the largest provider nationally of school wellbeing programs, working with about 1,150 schools across the country. And very much the purpose of our work, or our long-term vision, is to have wellbeing in every home every day, so that we can have happier and more resilient children and families. What we are looking to do is continue supporting the schools in Orange with practical tools, strategies, and a really comprehensive program to support their wellbeing, as we have done for the last few years. And we do that really excited on the back of a recent evaluation that we've been able to undertake with Monash University, which has shown that for schools that are with us for a period of 7 years, are seeing a reduction in symptoms of anxiety of 34% and a reduction in depressive symptoms of 47% for their students. So you can see there it's incredibly significant in terms of the impact that it's having on their mental health, and something that we're very buoyed about and want to continue. Where it's really relevant for these particular schools, for a lot of these schools, they've been with us for probably 4 to 5 years. And what we're wanting to do is stay committed to that longitudinal approach and long-term approach, where we want to be seeing these results for the schools into their in the next couple of years when they reach that 7-year mark. What we have alongside that is a real appetite from these schools themselves to continue, despite some of the funding challenges they're having. And I'm just wondering, Lil might share, just to bring it to life, what it means for some of these schools and the support that they're looking for.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think I've been lucky enough to work with the schools for the past 4 years, and the passion for wellbeing in the Orange community is genuinely second to none. I was fortunate to grow up on Wiradjuri land as well, and so working in the country is just incredible to see that wellbeing is at the forefront. And I think for the schools that we've been working with, what the program has helped them do is establish a really strong approach to wellbeing. And for some of the schools, it's actually enhanced the approach that they already had around wellbeing. And what this looks like is actually every school that we work with has time within their school timetable now where the kids are actually getting a chance to learn these strategies around sort of being proactive and preventative when it comes to their well-being. And given that schools are sitting in that space now with a really strong foundation, I think working with the schools, the real appetite now is around enhancing the staff wellbeing. So working on that front, so the educators can continue to show up for the school community, but also for their loved ones beyond school as well, because we know how important their wellbeing is to that. And the second piece is around engaging their families. A lot of the schools are sitting in a space now where they're going, we've got our kids practicing these strategies. We really want to get that into the family home even further. So there's that shared practice between home and school when it comes to wellbeing. And I think when working with the schools, as Ben mentioned, such an appetite to continue with the program, but notwithstanding the fact of budget constraints through the Department of Education. And so they're really keen to get that support, which has come for a number of years now through Orange City Council, to be able to continue this and strive for those wellbeing goals that they've got across their school communities.
Thanks, Lil. So I think for what complements that is that we have the challenges for the schools. So the first and foremost is probably the wellbeing profile of the students within these schools. So we actually have a scientifically validated survey that students complete, which provides a school with a wellbeing profile, an understanding of how many students actually have within their school environment that are regarded as resilient and ready to learn. And at this point in time, only half of the students in these schools are sitting in that particular category. So it shows, whilst there's been progress, we would love to be able to increase that and having, happier, more resilient and students who are in a much better position, to learn, because we know that impact on the wider community in the future has really positive and can be really significant at the same time. So that's something that we want to shift in terms of that overall wellbeing profile. But we also want to be able to support the schools with the barriers that they're having to work through in terms of funding, and wanting to do that with a shared financial commitment. So we're not looking for the council to absorb or to cover all of these costs. We're looking at a three-way partnership where we would be happy to support financially for some of the program elements and the professional development and digital content. We would then be looking at a shared cost between the council to cover the student fee, which is a lot of the curriculum resources, and then the school to pay the other half of that. So we feel that that approach can help set up a sustainable approach that can then support the wellbeing of these schools, not only for next year, but in years to come. So wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to present. What we're hoping is that for a lot of these schools, they are in the progress of planning for their programs for next year and also for the school year in 2026. And we were hoping to have an understanding as to that potential support, so that we can advise them in early term 4 as to where things sit, so that they can then have a really clear picture of what they can do to continue to support the wellbeing of their school community. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share tonight.
Thank you. Just got a couple of questions whilst I've got you there, Ben. First by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ben and Liv, for presenting and for the work that you do. Just a question, I suppose, looking at the participating schools, obviously there's quite a variety in terms of the size of those schools. And then when looking at the table that says the contribution of each school, is the contribution dependent on is it the same amount regardless on what size the school is, or I'm just wondering about the figure for the school, given that the different...
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think for us, it's actually a tiered approach. So we understand that for a lot of those small schools, they certainly couldn't afford the full cost, say, of a school that might have bigger numbers. So what we do is have a base level cost that we would be prepared to cover, and then it's essentially $20 per student. So if you've got a small school, some of these schools only have 30 students at the school, and then upwards of, you know, some schools having 400 or 500 students. So we understand is that for a lot of schools that they're funded based on their student enrolment numbers. So therefore is that we want to have a model that makes it accessible for them and also reflects the participating numbers of students involved in the program.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. Yeah, just well, two questions. The first is about the teaching and learning curriculum. Does that change every year?
That's a great question, and for us, very much so. So we actually have the program is designed and it's year level specific, right from foundation or from 5-year-olds right up year level, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then exactly the same into our senior year levels where we've got specific curriculum that's tailored to year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So students would never complete the same curriculum each year. And what we actually do is have a really strong commitment to that continual improvement where every year we review the curriculum and make enhancements based on the feedback that we receive from schools, hoping that, you know, that it's really engaging and meets the needs of students, you know, across the different age groups and year levels.
Okay, so you're not starting from scratch each year though, you're just revising and updating, which is fine. Forgive my bluntness though, but once you've got the curriculum done, does it really worry you if it's per student? Because it costs you the same to do it regardless. But once it's done, then for your costs, they're the same, irrespective of how many students use it.
Yeah, so when it's a great point, because I think is for some curriculum initiatives, it would be one and done. So for us, it's actually not that. So what we're doing is that we're actually creating new content every year, and there would be a series of new lessons that would be within that content every year. And that's why the reason is that we want to have that ongoing commitment to improving the curriculum, because unlike some department initiatives, so we know that it'll be created and that will be, you know, the same as it was 5 years ago. That's very much not the same for us, and something that we want to commit to, and probably is a big reason why there is such a strong retention rate of schools. So for us, our retention rate is 80%, and I think for having the variety in the curriculum and it actually changing year to year helps with that overall engagement. And we're really confident that that's been a successful model that we want to continue to implement.
Okay, sorry, maybe I didn't make myself clear, but it's the fact that it's a per student cost. You're developing the curriculum for each year, and that's done whether there are 1,000 students or 50,000 students that use it. The curriculum's the same, isn't it? So if you get a lot more people using it, then you get a lot more money. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it will. So a part of that is also having a sustainable model where we can then develop the capacity in teachers. So it's not just the case of here it is for the schools, all the best. You know, it's very much a case of how do we have a school partnership manager that sits alongside the schools to be able to develop the capacity in them and also support the other elements of the program where we're looking at, you know, how do we unpack the survey that actually is that schools undertake? How do we provide that continual implementation support? So there's a lot of different elements that sit around that student fee at the same time so that schools can have that successful implementation. So, and would be more than happy to chat if there was any other further questions on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Powell next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. So in relation to the $50,000 support from the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service, understanding the closing of the gap, that is part and parcel of the whole of Australia as far as Indigenous education. Is there some data that we can bring back in relation to the Aboriginal participation to all of these schools? Support that $50,000 from Orange Aboriginal Medical Service, please.
Is there? Yes, that was very much provided, I think, in the initial pilot program. But we have, providing that students have identified within the Resilient Youth Survey that they complete, that they have actually ticked that box, that would be data that we would be able to provide across the board. But that's obviously reliant on students indicating that as they complete the survey. And just to be clear with that as well, is that initial funding. So that was actually provided back in 2021, where we activated face-to-face presentations and were able to work across the whole community. That hasn't been funded, and that was for that particular year. That funding hasn't continued, in subsequent years.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Just one question on the 2025 participating school list. Of the 8 schools, 4 of them are actually outside of Orange City Council area, and the 2023-24 schools, actually 6 of the 11 schools were outside of the Orange City Council area. Has Blaney and Cabonne Council been approached to contribute as well?
Yeah, that will be the plan for us as well. And what we wanted to do was show, I think, in entirety, whilst it's not just schools limited to the Orange region, but some that are in close proximity to you as well. So what we're looking to do is extend that support, and we're needing to do that across probably a couple of LGA areas. But just wanted to give that picture, is that there are quite a few schools, that you would be aware of that extend, beyond Orange City Council at the same time. Obviously, we wouldn't be looking for funding for those schools. This is only for funding for the schools that are within the Orange City Council LGA.
Councillor Roddy.
Thank you. This is really incredible. I'm very excited about this being consistently rolled out in our schools. I do notice that we did have a bit of a drop off from 23 to 24 through to 25. What's the goal for 26? Are you hoping you can pick up some of those schools that are dropped off? And there's obviously quite a number of schools that still aren't participating. Is there a plan to try and get some more of those schools on board for 26?
Absolutely. In short, we would love to have more schools involved. I think some of a couple of the smaller schools have probably found it challenging, and what we're trying to do is work with them. Just with the fact is that they don't have as many resources, particularly with regards to staff. So what we're hoping to do is be able to sort of work with them and get a bit more of a fit for purpose approach with how we might be able to support them ongoing. But ideally, we would love to have a scenario where we've got other regional towns. Some of the towns where we've got in North Queensland or other regional areas where we've got up to 20 schools that are participating in some of these areas, and we would love to do that if there were schools interested and found that it was going to be something that would help their school community.
Thank you.
I just have a question. It's a matter of clarification. Thank you. You indicated that you were seeking approximately $27,000 from Orange City Council. And if you divide that by, I think there's approximately 2,600 students which would be affected, so that's roughly $10 per student. You indicated that the school pays $20 per student. Is that the school or is that the individual student who pays the $20?
Yeah, so it can range differently. So some schools will look to fund that themselves. Others will put that as part of their parent contribution fee, which would be paid at the start of each year. And that $20 would be part of, a range of other activities that they're obviously involved in through the school year. But so what we have found is that quite a number of schools have passed that cost to be shared with parents at this stage. And we're probably looking at a scenario where schools don't have the capacity to fund that moving forward. So hence, we're looking at a shared cost where we're looking at, can there be a contribution of $10 from the school and $10 from the council per student?
Thank you. And just further to that, if the students can't afford the money and the school is paying, has there been any approach made to the state government as far as funding assistance would be concerned?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I can only speak for, so we haven't approached the state government themselves because we have a good understanding is that at this point they have indicated there isn't funding to support beyond what they directly fund schools for. In Victoria, for example, they have a schools mental health menu where schools are given a portion of money each year to then support the mental health and wellbeing of their schools. And they need to select from a preferred provider or an accredited provider, and we sit on that particular list. So it certainly exists in other states where they've got accessibility to that funding, but unfortunately in New South Wales at this point in time, they don't have access to that. Hence the reason we're looking at other options to try and support the schools.
Thank you. You have Deputy Mayor Greenhalgh online. You have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ben and Lil, for coming along tonight. Thank you for the incredible work that you do. My son has actually been a part of this program at Orange High School for a number of years now. I think the important thing to remember is like in that cost, it covers the costs of diaries and stuff that the children write in. So that might just help some of the others understand. But I think the thing that's really important about this is that you guys haven't given up and put it in the too hard basket, because it's that ongoing touch point that they keep receiving each year, which is making this so effective, rather than other projects I've seen that, come in and we might do, a couple of sessions with the community, but it's not being backed up by anything else. So I think it's really important to look at the long-term investment and the benefit that this has got on our children in the schools. And, how do we put a price on a child's life? So thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm in full support of supporting you guys. So, yeah, thanks for coming in.
Really appreciate that.
Any further questions, councillors? Okay, the council will now resume. Let's have a look at item number 2, mirror minutes, 2.1 minutes, mirror minutes of the Central New South Wales JO meeting, which is held on the 31 July 2025. There's a recommendation on page number 7. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Moved by Councillor Power. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
I just noted the $7.8 million for the Bloodrilla Water Security Project business case. We finish next year on page 11. Just wanted to say in the fullness of time, we'd love more information about this, especially a timeline, but appreciate that the business case is required first. And I note with happiness that you are the portfolio mayor for regional water priority. So any questions to come?
Certainly, I'm well, there will be, Councillor. Any other? Being none other, we'll put the motion, show of hands for. Unanimous. Item 2.2, mirror minutes from the Country Mayors Association meeting held on the 8th of August 2025. Councillors, there's a recommendation on page 27. I'm happy to move those minutes. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor McDonald. Any discussion, councillors? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. A show of hands for. Unanimous. We'll have a look at item number 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Item 3.1, that's the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 2nd of September 2025. There's recommendation on page 40. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have some discussion. My discussion is around page 45 on 5.1 as regards to the reports coming in from councillors who went away to a conference, and thank you for your phone call today. I've lodged my report with 17, and I know some councillors were really keen to receive that report. But what does worry me about these reports that we come in and bring, and I've always said it in this chamber that we have a CEO that gets around about $400,000 a year, and we get a measly $20,000 a year, and so I think that a lot of other councils get their CEO to do the reports, but not going to that. But what was brought to my attention, and I looked at the previous ones there, and I did notice that 3 women went to was supposed to go to the Olga breakfast that morning, and only 2 went, and council paid $100 per ticket. I'm just wondering whether that councillor who didn't go is going to pay the money back, the $99 for that ticket.
Sorry. Councillor, I'll take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, I will move the motion. A show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you. There are no notice of motions or rescission. So we'll move to item number 5, general reports. And 5.1, confirmation of minutes from Policy Committee meeting held on the 2nd of September 2025. There's a recommendation on page 49. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this item, councillors? There being none, I will put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. If we go to item number 5.2, responses to questions taken on notice. There's a recommendation on page 75. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. A show of hands for. Unanimous. Councillors, if we go to item 5.3, development application DA 771/2024 in brackets 140 Cadia Road, Springside. There's a recommendation on page 83. Can I have somebody move and second the report? Moved by Councillor Righty, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion regarding the item? Just have the director come up to the microphone. Just a point of just a couple of points of clarifications. Thank you. Just under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, I've spoken to other mayors at country mayors, and they've spoken about VPAs and development agreements that provide public benefits such as land dedication, monetary contribution or funding for public infrastructure, affordable housing or community facilities in return for development approval. Mines, but also my understanding it's this type of thing as well. I'm just wondering what discussion has taken place, if any.
Through you, Mayor. In relation to this development, there's been no, discussions around a planning agreement. A planning agreement is, a mechanism whereby, a proponent may wish to offer a public good as such as part of the development. It is voluntary. It's certainly not mandatory. Typically, we use our voluntary planning agreements or our planning agreements through dedication of open space, perhaps down to some of our subdivisions in Chiralee area. You may recall we've got a planning agreement that's underway in relation to Redmond Place development, for example, where it's involving the dedication, delivery of certain infrastructure, and there's an offset of some contributions and the like. But specifically with regards to this development, we haven't been offered any planning agreement associated with the development, and I'm not sure where you would really start with one for a development of this type.
Thank you, because I was looking at the size of the batteries on there, and there are two proposed, and one of each, they're 5 megawatt, and there's no real detail in relation to that, because we don't have a voluntary planning agreement there. So to try and get any money back would be difficult, I would imagine. So it seems to lack some detail there, and you give an explanation, which I certainly accept. And are you able to indicate how council is proposing to rate this facility?
I'd probably need to refer to our rating team for that particular development.
Because the reason I ask is
take that on notice.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I can make it clear what I'm after. Is that I guess I asked the question is, should Orange be examining the new rating subcategory under the business and renewable projects, and, which could be much higher than the ad valorem rate for these type of projects? So I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about.
In terms of rating, I guess it's outside my skill set, to be honest with you. I'll probably take that on notice and ask one of our exec team to perhaps respond to that during the week.
Yeah. And I also looked at the planning amendment, which was first flagged by the government in October, and it seeks to restrict renewable energy projects from building within 10 kilometres of commercial centre or within 5 kilometres of residential land. And that covered areas such as Albury, Armidale, Bathurst, Dubbo, Griffith, Orange, Penworth and Wagga. The rules do not seek to immediately rule out projects that fell in the above-mentioned planning zones, but rather will require authorities to consider additional mandatory matters around key issues such as visual impact, agricultural land before granting planning approval. And they were discussed by some of the people who spoke here tonight, and also in a lot of the letters of objection. And in an update which was issued by the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, Executive Director of State Policies and Strategic Advice, Felicity Greenway, said that changes will come into effect in early 2022 after 96% of the public submissions on the new policy either gave feedback or supported the changes. So I guess, I don't see that in the report. And, the government also says that these new rules will ensure renewable energy projects are built in the right places to allow room for regional cities to grow and develop, including safeguarding vital land needed to make regional cities more livable. In the submissions which I've read, I think there's about 40 of them, the people have concerns around that. So in practice, the changes to the State Environmental Planning Policy Infrastructure 2007 will require consent authorities to consider if the proposal development will conflict with existing or approved uses of the land, such as land zoned for residential use. So whilst the Western Region Planning Panel are the consent authority, we also need to consider the project would significantly impact or conflict with land needed to support the growth of our regional cities. And not only these ones here, but when we talk about Sherrill-Lee, which is much closer, I know that's not subject to this DA, but it's certainly a lot closer than what these are. And I think we need to, in the future, to consider these type of issues, which will significantly impact the scenic quality of landscape and this regional city, which some of the speakers spoke about. So interesting times ahead. Thank you for your time. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, they're really relevant points that you've raised, and I would like to move an amendment that we actually put them into our submission for the regional panel to answer. Because what you're raising is an important fact. This is what we regard as critical infrastructure, DA, right? So, but it doesn't mean we need to still view this as a general DA application, because when we review an application of a development application, we never look at what the DA is going to be used for, and nor should we. It should just meet the merits of the DA application, which our staff make sure that does, right? But what you're mentioning is that this land is close to the city. It's basically on the borders of the town edge, right? It's going to lock up land which we don't have in the future for housing for 35 years if we move that way south, which we're going to have to one day, right? And it's very close to the city. So when you're talking about a VPA, I don't know if the microphone's working, but anyway, I'll keep talking. When we talk about VPAs, any critical infrastructure like mining or any other critical infrastructure, we needs to demonstrate what is it going to do for this city. Well, how's it going to benefit the ratepayers of this city, right? And you might say, well, it's a solar panel and it's going to generate energy, but that's not going to benefit this city. It goes directly back into the grid and can be sold anywhere by a retailer anywhere. It doesn't reduce the cost of electricity to this community, but it could do if there were policies in place and we raise them in this. And you've actually raised some of the issues that are talked about at a state level planning, right? What is this critical infrastructure going to do for the communities that it's taking big footprints in, right? It's tying up lots of land that can be used for other things. Now, This is it's tying up land to provide a critical asset. I understand that. But it's not benefiting this community directly. Not 1 cent of what they generate will come back to this community in any way, shape or form. It'll generate a couple of jobs when they're building it, but all of it will be run remotely. It is all run remotely from other parts of the country. It'll have a few people that go out and check it out. So I think it's important that it's mentioned in the submission, those things that you've highlighted, Mr. Mayor. Is this DA application, from a critical infrastructure and point of view, meeting the current regulatory or the policies that the government or the state government is talking about, which you've highlighted? Councils have to be given the power to negotiate with these developers to put conditions in place that give benefit to the community. And that might be cheaper power to the community because they're putting batteries in place, right? Solar batteries. And until we do such things, then if it was other things when we have infrastructure come to the city, and I'll use mining as an example because we have mines, right? The amount of, I suppose, work and environmental and community negotiation, it goes on for years and years and years until such time they get approval to do whatever they need. But they have to prove what their social impact is to the community. What is the social impact of this development application to the ratepayers of Orange and the community? I get the solar panel stuff and the renewable energies, right? But what is the benefit? Our role as councillors is to protect and represent this community. And if we're fair income, if we really are fair income, if you look at the submissions that came back for this DA application, which were 41, and 1 was for and 40 were against. So normally we would put a submission in that represents those submissions that came back from the ratepayers of this community or the people who live in our LGA, representing them. That they're not happy with it because of all of these reasons, right? And however, it still meets the relevant DA merits, right? But we still have to represent all of because we're not making the decision, we're giving a submission back to those who are. So thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor. And I think we need to be focusing on how do we put policy and help shape policy in our backyard that gives merit and I suppose back to the community, especially projects like this, because they're going to come up more and more and more, and really there's no benefit to our community directly, other than the landholders who own the land who are and good luck to them, by the way.
Just a point of clarification. We've got a resolution to put a submission in. Is that correct?
Yes, we need that. We've got to move in a second, but we haven't said whether we're going to support it or object to it. And we've got a mover by Councillor Ruddy, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. So we didn't ask whether we're going to support or go against it. So we need to do that first. So, Councillor Ruddy, what are you suggesting we support or?
I'm happy to support it. Okay.
So, and the seconder is Councillor Kinghorn, but I've got an amendment from Councillor Whitten to include.
Second that. That's to not support it. Is that correct?
Oh, it's more to add.
No, he wants to support
it. It's to answer questions which only the regional panel can answer because they're representing the state government planning, right? And those questions should be answered, right? Because this is our submission, right? We're actually adding a submission to. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I may. No. We're actually writing a submission like the farmers have who are affected by it. We're adding to that submission about.
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
What's in it for us?
Clarification from Councillor Whitten, if he wishes to answer. So we're going to ask something from the panel, or the government, and we're going to move that we're going to support it. That doesn't add up. Why are we supporting something when we don't know the answers? That's my question with that. But I've got a question. Sorry,
no, that's all right. I might be able to clarify what you're asking.
I've got a question for the director. My question is regards to, we heard a gentleman come and speak about the agricultural industry alongside it. And as you probably know yourself, when you come involved with concessional blocks and all those type of things that are involved in the area, there usually buffer zones have to be put in. And I think from concessional lots, there's usually a 200-metre buffer zone has to go in, or whatever depth that it normally is, to protect the agriculture and to dust travelling across onto these things, which one of the speakers spoke about there. What's your answer to that one there? Because I would imagine if you're going to put in buffer zone of trees, you need a rural fire service assessment.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor. Under Council's Development Control Plan, we certainly have some controls in there in relation to the placement of a residential dwelling in relation to an intensive planned agricultural activity, for example. But there's no other planning provisions in our DCP that deal with, solar farms like this particular nature. Under those, with those developments, there certainly is a buffer landscaping required that would normally potentially restrict or potentially protect the residential dwelling from perhaps agricultural operations, the like of spraying and the like. So not relevant in, the consideration of this application. This application has said the issues that have been raised by the families that have been here, they were certainly the most affected residents in our assessment. We've looked at it in relation to setbacks of the development to the agricultural land. In particular, there's a 5-metre landscape buffer that was we've asked to expand that out. It then goes to a 10-metre wide APZ, which is a clear zone before the actual solar panels, solar arrays are erected. So it's essentially a 15-metre setback to the panels themselves from the property boundaries, which was considered reasonable in this instance. So I'm not sure if that's quite answered your question, but that's how we've gone about this assessment.
I would tend to think, to me personally, from what I knew from concessional blocks on my previous council, that distance of trees and those type of things is not far enough. But my further question to you is regards to what Councillor Whitten spoke about, is 1.4 kilometres out the Cadia Road where it's situated there, and it's very close, probably another kilometre into where the shopping centre is.
Yep.
And the hospital and all those things. So I tend to think that would wipe it out. But at the same time, we had one of our speakers, and I think it was Mr. Linfield, that said that he had a report on a property on the western side of the area there that the soil was contaminated. Can we get a copy of that report, or the contamination report, to go with it as well?
The adjoining neighbour's properties.
The adjoining neighbouring property. I have real concerns about that. If his property is contaminated and we've got it in a water catchment area, I have really big concerns about that at all, because I'm quite happy to move a resolution that we put a submission in to go against it on a lot of the grounds that the speaker spoke against, those type of things there. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I'm not against renewable energy.
Yep. I'm
in support of wind power and I'm in support of things, but we're not even in a renewable energy zone.
No.
Which is put out by the government themselves. So I have concerns, really big concerns about the whole project and the ambient, but I'll debate that when we have a resolution.
Can I just confirm before I go to Councillor Kinghorn? So we've got an amendment do we have an amendment from you, Councillor?
Yes, you do, Mr. Mayor. Just to add your points that you've raised.
Okay.
Questions, that are going to go to the Joint Regional Planning Panel, right? And I know SAF can't answer.
Okay. I'm happy to second that because you obviously have a different view, Councillor Duffy. Or do you want to second it?
I'll move an amendment that we don't support it. I'm understanding the fact that it's contrary to that, and if it gets beat, it'll be the.
Okay. All right. So we've got an amendment.
If I may.
Yes.
Move and may add them in there because they're just questions, right? Into the motion.
Can I just, because what I'm saying might clarify some of this anyway. Is that okay?
Yes,
that
Councillor.
Right? So I've got a few questions and a few points. spent this afternoon reading the large-scale solar energy guideline. So that was fun. And from what I can ascertain, most of the points are valid, except that this particular project isn't covered by that because the capital investment is less than $30 million, even though the points are valid. And we certainly in there, there was a requirement for extensive consultation, which we didn't have. And we've discussed that with Mr. Johnson earlier and agreed that it doesn't really, it's not really what we want with Orange City Council, not to consult people. So my comment is that we could either make a submission supporting it, we can make a submission not supporting it, we cannot make a submission at all, or we can make a submission acknowledging that we see that it meets the guidelines, but we have some concerns. Which is essentially what's being said. So the planning concerns have been addressed. So any issues that we have, if we weren't to support it, would need to show that the planning document presented is flawed or incomplete. That's correct?
Yes.
So I've got a couple of questions on that basis, just because I want to make sure we get this right. So the soil classification, so on page 118, it talks about it being class 3. And I have a close at hand soil scientist who assures me that it should be class 2. So I'm just wondering because that would make a difference to the requirements. So when you look at the Google Earth image of this property, then on the western side you can clearly see hail netting, which means it was orchard, which means it probably was more cropping type land at one point. So my question is, the class 3 classification, is that based on current use or historical use, or does somebody test it, or it may well be class 3, but Greg was very surprised when he saw that.
I think it's based on the current use of the property, but it's certainly acknowledged in our knowledge that the site is like B-Sow land south of Orange, being some of the most highly productive agricultural lands in the region.
Almost contradictory to the class 3.
Yeah, but nonetheless, this is, I guess, an issue that we strongly grappled with about, I guess, the balancing between the solar panel facility and the impact that it does have on agriculture. The property is around about 40 hectares, and about half of that property is actually being developed for this particular purpose. There is an area around the site that would be continue to be used for agricultural purposes, like sheep grazing and likes, around the sort of the maintaining the APZ and the different areas. But having said that, when you look at across the region, and I guess it's that drop in the bucket, how much impact does it have on agricultural operation? If we approve one, do we approve another one? Do we approve 10 of them? Do we approve 50 of them across the region over time? But it certainly is highly productive land. As part of that assessment, we referred the application to the primary industries and agriculture for I guess, guidance on the proposal, particularly in relation to, I guess, the potential land use conflict between the two uses. They've come back with general support for the project, but there was some matters that they wanted to address in relation to groundwater management plans, ground cover management plans, the decommissioning of the site, how that was going to work. And each one of those issues have been, I guess, addressed in conditions or recommended conditions of consent. But not sure if that's quite addressed your issue, but it certainly recognises, I guess, and I'm happy to reiterate this to the panel, is the importance of this land in terms of the agricultural use of the site.
I guess I'm asking whether, if the soil classification isn't correct, I mean, if that's how it's done based on current use, then we've done nothing wrong from a planning perspective. But if it's not correct, then that means essentially the planning document possibly is flawed. So that might give other people scope to pursue this if they didn't want to have the project go ahead. My next question was about the use of the word temporary. What defines temporary? I wouldn't classify 35 years as temporary.
I think we've just used the word temporary insofar as that the life of the project was over 35 years. 35 years is a long time, but we have actually conditioned the development to have a finite timeline. And at the end of that particular timeline of 35 years, there's recommended conditions about the decommissioning of the site and return of the site for the purposes of being used for agriculture. This is another issue that we grapple with very strongly about how that works, but the condition of consent requires it to be linked into the lease agreement with the property, because it's always, like there's also a waste management plan there for that particular arrangement. It was primarily just classified as, using those words because it had a finite timeline.
Okay, so there's no special definition that we have to follow. We've
I
just
don't believe
interpreted
so.
it
I mean,
based on
we
the
probably didn't even need to specify the word. Ultimately, the project is as a development that's permissible on the land. It's been proposed for 35 years. We've conditioned it to be restored back to its natural state at the end of the 35 years.
Okay, and we will follow up on that if it goes ahead.
Yep.
Okay. The one of the speakers, Amanda Delaney, I think spoke about the screening.
Yes.
What was it? And how what the
Where do we
the
how do we
plans
arrive
are,
at that
they're not
decision?
going to their life isn't going to be that long. Is that part of the is it required that they maintain that screening?
Yes.
It is. Yep.
In the draft conditions of consent, there's conditions requiring a detailed landscape plan to be submitted for my approval. It needs to achieve certain outcomes in relation to height of landscaping. We took the Joint Regional Planning Panel on site for their panel inspection. They requested that that consideration be given to a range of height of landscaping. The actual panels are only 1 metre high. It's also surrounded by a 3 metre high security fence. And they requested that consideration of understory sort of landscaping, as well as some higher trees up to 5 metres. What's not in the condition is obviously specifying mature, what do you call it, advanced species, but that's something that we can talk to the panel about in terms of establishing. And the condition also requires 2 years of sort of ongoing watering weekly to get them established as such. But the condition of consent also goes on that the landscaping be maintained in perpetuity to my satisfaction. So if we go out there in 15 years' time and the landscaping looks dogged, we can actually say condition number X, you need to do some more work.
Okay, so it's in there to address the concerns of the residents, and I just suspect if we had better consultation, we may have been able to address those concerns personally, and they may not have the concerns. So if we do what the amendment suggests, which is support the application or acknowledge that we can't not support it because the concerns have been addressed, like you've got the things that Councillor Miletto has pointed out as well, can we just make sure that all of those things are attached when the submission goes through? So
through the from what's formulated out of the minutes here, I'll certainly prepare a letter, and we can find your resolution. But those matters can be certainly raised. I mean, I can touch on a couple of them if you want me to, but
Mr. Mayor, I think Jono, the acting director, has pretty well explained most things adequately. Like they've been talking to the planning panel, and I thank Councillor Kinghorn for really getting in with the right questions there. So, but I think it wouldn't hurt with a couple of those questions that don't really need an amendment. I think they could just be added into because you're going to represent council when you talk to the JRPP, and these are things that were raised.
Yep.
In support, like at the end of the day, I'm a believer in that people should be able to use their land for whatever they want to use it for, as long as it meets the relevant laws and requirements. And this type of activity is quite lucrative for farmers who can't produce on their land anymore, right? There is a good return for them and little to do. I'll stick to my point is that what's in it for the community of Orange, and if we could get to a level where we could actually, because it would be. If the renewable energy companies were to do that, then this would become more supportive, if you know what I mean. If it's getting benefit back into the community, cheap power, although the things that are really hurting people at the moment, then people are going to be more supportive of these contentious issues, aren't they? So, but anyway, it still has to meet the planning merits, and from the director, it has done so, Mr. Mayor. It's a long way of getting around.
Yeah, just to add to the list of things we're talking, I'd like the 42 submissions that have been given to us to be attached to whatever submission that we send to the West Green Planning Council today.
Yeah, I can confirm they've already sent to the panel.
And then the only other thing would be just a recommendation that the panel contact the 42 for consultation.
can also confirm that that occurs separate to, I guess, this process where I've written to the residents that we received a submission on, inviting them to come along to here to address the council, acknowledging that the planning panel is the consent authority. The panel secretariat actually separately writes specifically to each one of those residents, inviting them to also participate in a public hearing.
Any further discussion, councillors?
Can we have the resolution moved out, read out?
When we
Sorry, councillor.
we have a. I think Councillor Whitten was asking whether the mover of the original motion would accept
Yeah,
his
we could just
amendment.
have
I
them
don't
as-
think we ever got clarity on that.
You just make them as notes
He
in
did.
the submission. Yeah. The Mayor's questions.
Didn't we
Thanks.
decide not to do an amendment and just submit those questions as part of the?
You're happy as the mover.
And you accepted to do that?
Yeah, and you accept
Yes, yes. So there's no amendment. We're just submitting the questions as well.
Yeah.
We've just got one motion.
Yes.
So I can move an amendment.
Can.
I move an amendment that we not support the development application. Get a second.
Councillor Judge there, would you like to speak to it now, councillor?
I'll speak for the amendment. Yes, we listened to a lot of the speakers as regards to the project. And there was 41 submissions, and there was only one for it. I'm going to back I'm going to back our ratepayers. Now, number one is our ratepayers. Now,
Interrupt you and get a point of order. Because this is a direct negative of the motion. Does that mean
He's allowed to make an amendment.
Allowed to do that.
you're allowed to amend it to be completely opposite to what the motion is?
Have submission not supported.
Oh, okay. All right.
thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Along those lines there, as regards to there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't be supporting it, and irrespective of whether we do or not, the panel will make a decision anyway, whether they're going to go yes or no for it, whatever it is. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, we should be supporting our ratepayers in this situation. If the panel are going to go against the ratepayers of Orange, that are the area, the farmers and the ambits of the areas, we should be asking the government to take complete planning laws away from council. They're interfering with what they're doing. I know the reason why they've got the major projects going through, because of the internal conflicts between councils and councillors as well. But I look at the situation. It's it's only within that 5 kilometre boundary area from subdivision. It's even closer than that, because the TAFE area has been broken down already, approved to 350 lots out there at the old TAFE section. It's already in 350 lots, so it's even a lot closer than what we think as regards to the old TAFE, or not the old TAFE, the TAFE area out there. You're looking at the issues of contamination. We had a speaker here say, look, the area is contaminated. We're looking at in an actual water catchment area of Gosling Creek. We're also looking at addressing it doesn't really address the issues of continual interfering with agriculture, because it is prime agricultural land. It is prime. I mean, you've only got to go out there, and I go past it 3 or 4 times a day, and even more on some occasions, and you see wonderful lucerne crops, other crops growing in that area there. And I know Councillor Whitten knows where it is, because he had his cornflutes up for the election just 100 metres before it.
Not on that land, across the road.
Stick to the issues, councillors.
I was just surprised that they lasted so long still up, but they're my major concerns, and it's not in a renewable energy zone. We need to be in a renewable energy zone. The government brought these policies out, the federal government, so let's stick to what they actually want. I'm fully supportive of all these organisations that are in a renewable energy zone. You've only got to go across to Wellington and have a look at the massive solar panel thing over there. They're in a renewable energy zone. You've got the same situation out at Ukarina with the wind farms in a renewable energy zone. So with all the information given to us by the speakers, I think we should not be supporting this in any shape or form, and we should be asking the panel to support the ratepayers And what I do notice is that these organisations that put in these applications, they're very much like the mining companies. They come in and get approval, and then they on sell them. And that to me is a little bit shifty because it'll be contingent on getting approval. Whether I can understand the farmer wanting to go there because they'd probably get massive money as regards to the 35-year lease. But one of the other issues is it went at one of our
nothing to do.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll let Councillor Duffy continue, please.
I'll just go back to the situation at a energy conference in Dubbo 2 years ago. We had the Newcastle University give us a speech on solar panels, and they advised that the Chinese were moving away from solar panels simply because they weren't lasting as long as what they said. Now we're giving this thing here, this project here, 35 years. Now, are those solar panels going to last 35 years? Now, if they don't, where are they going to go? Where are we going to put them? And that's my point. And then what happens if there's a heavy hailstorm, like we had in the 1980s, size of cricket balls, that smashes them? Where are they going to go? They're going to go on the ground. It's very close to our water catchment. It's very close to the city. So that's basically what I mean. I'm going to back the ratepayers in what they say. The ambience of the mountain too, as well. It's supporting what we want.
Thanks, Councillor. I've got a second by Councillor Judge. On a rare occasion, Councillor Duffy, I'm going to support you on this for all the reasons which I've stated. I would have liked to have had this information prior. I know that the council have done their due diligence, and thank you for that. But the concerns which are raised by some of the people, the objectants, I totally agree with. And I think we're being put in a situation which we're quite uncomfortable about being in, to be quite honest. Being made a decision without being provided solid information, in my opinion. But hence the reason I'll be supporting you, Councillor Duffy. Your amendment. Yes, Councillor Whitten.
Yeah, look, Mr Mayor, I'm going to support the amendment as well for the simple reason I think from the points of the questions you've raised, highlighted, it's in the wrong spot, that type of infrastructure. And I suppose a question through you to the Director. I've often wondered, when we have large solar farms, is it in the flight path of the airport, like that number of and the helicopter landing on the hospital and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, one of the report actually addresses it in the submissions. Yeah. We contacted CASA and they indicated no objections to it. So.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I oppose the amendment. I don't believe we have solid planning grounds to make a submission opposing this. I do note that on page 84 it says, should council wish to do so, specific planning matters must be nominated so that arrangements can be made for a submission letter. I appreciate the concerns raised by people living near a proposed development. I can understand significant change to an area near you. We encounter it with residential developments as well, can cause concern for nearby neighbours, but I think the staff have worked through the issues in their assessment. They have imposed conditions. We have raised some additional issues. The maturity of the plantings was one that I was going to look at proposing. We have incorporated as well, but if the original motion gets up, my understanding is that'll be taken up with the planning panel as part of this. While I understand it is significant in the context of the area, this isn't a large-scale development, which is why the large-scale guidelines don't apply. Yes, it's not in a renewable energy zone. We need renewable energy rapidly rolled out everywhere. Renewable energy zones are identified for the truly large-scale infrastructure that is going to be installed in those areas. What we actually need, though, is diversity of locations and siting of renewable energy infrastructure. That's what gives us the coverage that when conditions don't provide good conditions for generating solar or wind energy, whichever infrastructure it is in a particular area because of weather or whatever else, that you've got energy generation happening elsewhere. This is an entirely different approach to the 20th century model of energy generation, and it's what we need to have happening. The staff have worked through a lot of the issues that have been raised. You know, the visual impact, we've got screening conditions. The glint and glare they've addressed as being manageable and not sufficient to cause concerns. The idea of conflict of land use, there's the possibility still of agriculture happening on the site, let alone on neighbouring sites. So all of those things make this a workable project. I think we should not oppose this. And while I note, you know, some of the comments were suggesting that people seeing things as they fly in, and I note that CASA, as we heard, had provided the indication that that's no problem in terms of the actual flights, but the comments about things like people flying in would see this, and how bad would it make Orange look? It would actually make clear that we are being part of the transition that is needed to address climate change and to make the rapid switch to renewable energy. And while, if we come back to the original motion, I was going to make some more comments relating to some of the issues Councillor Whitten raised, some of which I do agree with in a lot of ways. Yeah, I just think, you know, we need to be a progressive council that is demonstrating that we are capable of recognising that change is needed, that recognising that renewable energy infrastructure is needed, and identifying that agricultural land, yes, but land that is not being used productively and hasn't been for some time, land that is a very small proportion of the prime agricultural land that exists, and that's the case both locally and nationally, that there's plenty of land left for productive agricultural purposes. Yeah, I can't support an amendment that would see us saying that, no, we just say no to making those important actions and supporting them in an area that I think is appropriate and that staff have indicated is appropriate as well, and that has the appropriate conditions to address the concerns. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also appreciate all of the guest speakers here and the concerns, but I also echo Councillor Mallard's aspect of the report, and after reading the report and also going on the site visit too, and then looking at that, yeah, it keeps on saying it's prime agricultural area, but on the site visit that we did that day, and the dates are noted in the report, it's very difficult speaking to the farmer of that place there to actually get on because it's so wet, so soggy. And then looking to the north side of the property, there was apparently might have been an apple orchard or something, but it's been given up. It's been given up. So I'm actually, yeah, I do agree with the points of the original amendment, and I will support the original amendment. Original motion, but I just think that we should proceed forward with the points in the original motion, and that's why I speak against the amendment. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Kinghorn.
Can I just foreshadow an amendment if this one doesn't get through?
You can.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any further speakers on the amendment? I'll put the amendment. Show of hands for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 or 8. Can I just show of hands again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 for. Show of hands against. 3. We got 1 out. So the amendment now becomes a motion. Show of hands for the.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, did you?
For the foreshadowed amendment.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is to make a submission acknowledging that the application meets the planning criteria, but that we have some concerns.
Okay.
I just think we have to be careful, because if we're going to oppose something on the basis of it has to be done, like to make it a legal thing, it has to be done on the basis of a planning thing. And if all of the planning issues have been adequately addressed, whether we like them or not, then we have to be careful. So I think this is a way around that, which is to acknowledge that it appears to meet the criteria, but we've got some concerns, and then to list what they are.
I'm happy to second that.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got a, well, where are we up to now? We've got the amendment.
Other amendments.
We say what it is. Can we have it written out? What?
So it's going to be that we support.
We acknowledge that.
Yeah, we acknowledge
that the DA appears to
somebody
meet
read
the
it, please.
criteria.
I think it's point.
So it was that council makes a submission on the application to the Western Regional Planning Panel, the submission being that we acknowledge that the DA appears to meet the planning criteria, that we have some concerns. They've been previously listed.
And outline what the concerns are. Yep. I'm happy to second that. Councillor Duffy?
I want to speak against it.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Basically for the same reasons what it was before, but I didn't mention the fact that the consultation period, there was no real consultation. We heard that from every one of the speakers here tonight. There was no consultation from anywhere. But for the issues regarding it being so far from the centre of town or in a residential area is a good enough reason to say no, because I've seen Orange grow from Greengate way out to there. So if it grows that far in the next few years, the solar farm is going to be in the town. It's going to be in the town. That's not what we want. But again, I mean, as I said, I'm going to support the ratepayers because that's what they want. 40 submissions that are against it. Now that equates to a fair few. As I said before, I'm not against renewable energy. I think in the rural what do they call them? In the zones that they have. I think let's go there where they are. But as I said, no consultation. The issues of farming in prime agricultural land, it just doesn't add up for us here. And the contamination and the opportunities that could contaminate the.
Sorry, can I ask the mover of the foreshadowed motion, would you accept those be included, Councillor Duffy's concerns?
I certainly would, and can I just respond a little bit as well? Because this particular project didn't qualify as a large-scale solar energy guideline project, then it means there was no consultation required, which is appalling. I get it, but legally it wasn't required. And most of the other things that you've mentioned have adequately legally been addressed by the planning department. So those things, I don't like them either. No one does that's here, because there should have been consultation. But if you read the guidelines, it's actually not required.
Just in response to that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you can, hang on, wait. You can sum up at the end, Councillor Duffy. Any further speakers? Yeah, Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support Councillor Kinghorn's amendment because I prefer it to the motion, and I can't support us putting in a submission that opposes this. And I am happy to raise concerns, and I do, as I said, I agree with some of the issues Councillor Whitten raised. I mean, I think the issue will be where going to the wrong authority in raising some of those concerns with the planning panel. I'm happy for us to put them in and note them to the planning panel, but it's similar to when we get to voting on the councillor allowance increase every year, and we resolve that we're going to write to the local government remuneration tribunal and say we don't think we should have to vote on this, and they write back to us and say, well, that's the law and we can't change the law and you need the parliament to change the law. The planning laws are the problem, and I'm glad some people are discovering that in relation to renewable energy projects now, but it applies much more broadly than that. community consultation requirements in our planning laws have been inadequate. Mining companies and many other forms of developers have failed to do adequate work on those things, have failed to do adequate work on ensuring there is genuine shared community benefit rather than just buying a bit of social license along the way. So I'm all for us actually advocating for stronger, better planning laws. There is already work happening on this in relation to the necessary rapid rollout of renewables. I know governments at multiple levels are working on this. I also know there are great examples of it being done well. Hay, with their large-scale renewables project down there being one example of that. This is, as I've already said, this is not large-scale it's as large as we're going to see in our local government area. It's not large scale in the context of what's actually happening in terms of renewables across the country. But definitely developers and proponents of these things need to do the best job they could. They should be aiming to do best practice as one of the speakers talked about. I don't believe we can oppose it because, as Councillor Kinghorn has pointed out, they weren't bound by the planning laws to do better than what they've done. But I absolutely am comfortable with us saying that we wish they would do better, but we need to look to find other avenues as well to do that advocacy, and that's probably something you, Mr. Mayor, in particular, are in a position to take up through our advocacy channels in the joint organisation and other things. And I know the JO, I didn't talk about it in your mayoral minute, but I know they're doing good work on recognising that investment in renewables needs to happen and roll out of this infrastructure, but also acknowledging the ways it needs to be done as well as possible to ensure that communities are brought along on the journey. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, yeah, I think Councillor Mallard has pretty well summed it up. I think if we can capture everything that Councillor Mallard has just said in the spirit of what we're all thinking, because we've identified the flaws in the planning of renewables so close to the city, right? Because Councillor Duffy has made a relevant point. In 15 years' time, and it'll be about that time when the city starts moving out that way, that solar farm will be in an urban area. And if it benefits the community, that solar farm is a community asset from delivering energy to that part of Orange, for example. I know I can't probably do all of Orange, but they are 2 4 megawatt from memory, 4 or 5 megawatt batteries. They probably can. Then it becomes more digestible to the community, right? They get more buy-in. When we're, like I said before, when we're losing assets of the city at no benefit to the city, then it's very hard to support. But I'll support the amendment that Councillor Kinghorn's put up, because we're trying to identify all of the issues that we're dealing with as a council, and the staff have followed the planning laws, and they've done a great job. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Being no further discussion, I will put the foreshadow motion. Show of hands for. Councillor Deputy Mayor, what are you doing? No, she's not. So can I just show of hands again, please? Those for the foreshadow. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councillor Stebbins, what are you doing? 5, 6, 7. So the foreshadowed now becomes the motion. Show of hands for.
Vote
against.
Oh, sorry, votes against. So I've got 1 on screen. 2, 3, 4. That's right. There's 1 out of the room. So now the foreshadowed becomes the motion. Show of hands for the motion. So that's 8. 8-4. Show against. 1, 2, 3. 3 against. Thank you, councillors. If we can ask Councillor Donald to come back in the room.
off your wages too.
I now know what Councillor Kinghorn
Probably
feels like. Some reading material.
4 small donations, request for donations. There's a recommendation on page 453.
Move the recommendation.
Moved
to
by
support it.
Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Mallard.
Just say thanks to the staff and thanks to the Scouts for arranging to have a speaker to come and clarify things. Yeah, very happy on the basis of the information about the way their travel arrangements are working. Yeah, happy to support it. It cleared it all up. Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous, thank you. Item 5.5, Statement Investments, August 2025. There's a recommendation on page 459. Can I have somebody move and second the report? Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous, thank you. Item 5.6, motion from Local Government Annual General Conference on November 2025. There's a recommendation on page 501. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the report? Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Mallard.
Being the person who submitted this motion, just speak to it briefly. This follows from those who were around in the previous term will know we became members of the mayoral task force, now called the Mayor-Lang Councillor Task Force, supporting people seeking asylum. This is a motion that they requested that one of their member councils assist with putting forward for Local Government New South Wales. They did put a motion at the Australian Local Government Association conference a few months ago as well. They had a stall down there, so I hope some of you had the opportunity to connect with them and get a bit more info about the Back Your Neighbour campaign, and you're all very welcome if you want to get involved in their meetings. I can line you up with that, and I did in talking to the task force administrator, Dr. Anne Lee from...
Just as a point of order, Mr Mayor, I want to withdraw my seconder for that motion. Someone else can second it.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Duffy. You want to withdraw
You
it?
were surprised anyway. So.
I'm just interested in why. Councillor McDonald. So Councillor Duffy's withdrawn his second. He was too excited, but now it's been seconded by Councillor McDonald. We all understand that? You continue, please, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, and she did let me know that they're planning to have, they're arranging to have a stall at the Local Government New South Wales conference, so those of us who go will be able to meet them. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear, and this motion is consistent with what the goals and the lobbying asks of this task force have been since before we joined it, and certainly at the time that I provided the information that we joined it. This isn't about immigration rates as it's been framed in some reporting, unfortunately, or immigration debate. This is about for people who are already here, who have been seeking asylum, providing them with fairness, providing them with support, and providing them with an opportunity to contribute and to participate in community while they are here. So providing them opportunities to work, providing them an opportunity to contribute, sorting out the status resolution support services program, making sure they have access to adequate healthcare and accommodation and things, and providing a fair pathway to permanency for those who have been here for more than a decade, but kept in limbo and uncertainty and without access to the sorts of support services and opportunities for education and things that we take for granted. So that's the nature of the motion. The background explains more of the issues leading to these asks. We have been really consistent on this over a number of terms of council now. Before my time, Orange resolved to become a refugee welcome zone. We have, and I work closely with Rural Australians for Refugees Orange, which established itself a couple of years ago, and that came out of the Afghan Asylum Seeker Working Group that was established by Council in the term before I came on to Council. We joined the task force last year. We've had Councillor McDonald's motion in support of exploring a friendship city or a sister city arrangement with a Ukrainian city. We've done a lot of great work in this area. As the information notes, when the federal government in particular doesn't provide the sort of support that this motion is talking about, it puts more pressure onto local governments. And I know our migrant support services staff do wonderful work, both with asylum seekers and refugees and also with other arrivals to our community from overseas in providing them with support and opportunities. But this is about ensuring that we do back people who are already here in having some certainty and stability in their lives after they have come from very traumatic often and very challenging backgrounds. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this going. So this is just so that we can put this up at the LGNSW conference in November. I'm more than happy to support this, as Councillor Mallard's already made some fantastic points there. Our council's migrant support staff really do. They deliver an incredible body of work on an absolutely tight, sometimes non-existent budget. But calling on the responsible parties to really make sure that we can have these supports in place is definitely something we should be doing, and advocating for that level of government to take responsibility that is actually their responsibility. So more than happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question too. I'm not sure which director wants to take this on, but if somebody...
Ask your question.
The question is going to be around eligibility criteria for asylum seekers, and the reason I ask the question is because, and I thank the migrant support team for all the work they've done, and Councillor certainly raises some valid points. The reason I asked the question with regard to that criteria is because yesterday I went to Orange Sky, and we spoke about people who were homeless in this city and or struggling to find housing and things like that. And there was the figure quoted to me was something like 269. It could have been. So I'm just wondering how this would work together if it becomes if we're talking about eligibility criteria for asylum seekers to have a priority on housing. How does that work? Or how is it going to work? I mean, how are we going to work together as a community for that to occur?
Wouldn't that be beyond the scope?
Sorry. I mean, I don't know whether one of the directors will feel that, because that question seems to be two-edged between migration and also our...
Yeah, but migration isn't a council issue either. It's a federal government one. Whilst we're trying to assist, this isn't really an issue for local government, in my opinion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I have my Manager of Community Services here, but I'm not going to ask her to answer that question. I can't see what her face is behind me at the moment, but I can well guess. I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, really how to answer that question. Certainly in terms of housing, I know that when we do have asylum seekers and when they are in our community, that we wrap our migrant support services around them to help them find housing, to help them find jobs, to help them become assimilated into society. Having a job and being part of the community is really important for asylum seekers and all migrants. So we would do that. The bit about how they would become a priority for permanent residency or housing is probably beyond our scope, but we can certainly seek to find out how that might work for the next council meeting.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, as far as timing's concerned, then if we're asked to support a submission, which I agree with, some of the stuff in here, but there's other things I'm concerned about. When does this have to be submitted by? Does it allow enough time for that to occur?
I'm not sure on the dates, Mr. Mayor. Maybe Ms. Constantine has the dates for submission. No.
Whilst we're waiting for that, I might ask Councillor Kinghorn,
Yeah, I just was curious about the section that says it places huge burdens on local government and service providers. Can we quantify that at all, just out of curiosity? What sort of a cost would it be for, like, just locally? Just interested to know.
Are you asking for the matter to be deferred on further information, Councillor?
We can certainly do that. From our perspective, we have staff obviously that are funded through various agencies and also council to provide these services. So we could certainly have an estimate of what those costs would be. Off the top of my head, there's not a huge cost that council bears to provide those services to migrants or asylum seekers once they're here. So I wouldn't expect it to be much at all, frankly. Certainly direct cost. Although Director probably has an answer to the date.
Thank you, Director Sharp.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just reiterating an email that came from Executive Manager Kath Davis. She needed them to be at this meeting to meet the deadline. I don't have the exact deadline in here, but this was the last meeting that would make it possible to meet the deadline for the conference.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Ruddy, yes.
Just in regards to your question, if possible, is your concern that people that have been here for more than 10 years already, not necessarily just in Orange, just in the country, are going to place a burden on housing when they're already here and have been here for an extended period of time? Because I think that's what it's about, isn't it? People that are already here, not people that are coming, who are probably already in housing, and if they're not, probably need some support to get into housing, just like a lot of other people do. I'm just a bit confused about what the concern is.
If that was the case, I'm not sure why housing's in there then. Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, look, I'll support something that's obviously happy to, or important to some colleagues, put effort into making it happen. I have to admit, though, when I first read it, I didn't think the motion had much to do with local government, although I acknowledge that in the supporting information there's a couple of sentences about a task force and existing council supports. So just for consideration, when there probably will be sceptical people in the audience, the local government, I think really stressing how this links to local government probably gives you more chance of getting what you want across the line.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support this resolution. Number one, I find it very hard to support something that really immigration is not our issue, or asylum seeking is not really our issue as a local government area. One of my biggest reasons at the moment is whether it be immigration or whether it be asylum seeking or whatever the case may be, at the current government at the moment, I cannot support. I cannot support because they brought the women and children over here, that went over to Afghanistan to support their families or their husbands, whatever was over there, and support them while they were firing bullets at our troops. I just think that was that is just not on with me as far as I'm concerned. And as I said, I can't support the current government in its current. If they have a review of the whole process, I'd be very happy to look at it and probably support it. But at the moment, I can't support the government in that.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor Mallard, do you want to sum up?
Yeah, thanks. Look, I've got to say, I find it disappointing the direction some of this debate has gone, and I note again that in the past, these sorts of issues resolving to become a refugee welcome zone, establishing an Afghan asylum seeker support group, supporting Ukraine Friendship City, have been, I think in many cases, unanimous decisions of the relevant councils. Really concerned, and I guess it's an indication of where some of the toxic public debate is going in terms of right-wing activity around purportedly immigration being an issue in terms of things like infrastructure and housing. That motion that I have attempted to make clear, both in the original written form and in my comments tonight, is not about discussing who the government is bringing here or how many people are coming here, but about the fact that people who arrive in this country and are seeking asylum have been placed in an awful state of limbo where they are not able to attempt to put together a life and attempt to make a contribution to our society. That's what this motion is about. It's a task force that we resolved to join unanimously, and it's one that has been doing really good advocacy work in this space. And yes, Orange Council and our local government area doesn't have that larger scale of migrants that, as the director explained, it doesn't place a huge burden on us, particularly as a council, but it is a national issue. It is one where we have established ourselves as wanting to be a refugee welcome zone. We have community groups in the local government area and the region as well, who do work to help people resettle here and help people attempt to make a positive contribution. And many of them succeed with that support. But this is about saying to the federal government and somehow calling on the government to do something that they're not doing. So I'm not quite sure why Councillor Duffy thinks this is about supporting the current government, because we're calling on them to actually do something different and do something better. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion on. Show of hands for. For. Show against. 2 against. Thank you, councillors. The motion is passed. Have a look at item 5.7, Progress Report, Delivery Programs, Operational Plan 24-25. Delivery Program Year 3, 6 months from 1st of January 25 to 30 June 2025. There's a recommendation on page 503. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Variety, seconded by Councillor Steadman. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Peterson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 items caught my eye in the preserve section. 1 comment, 1 question. Page 538, 9.1.3.1 regarding the recycled water details business case. Just wanted to flag how I think that item in particular is quite important to both the council and community. We'd love regular updates for that and think it would be a sitter for the Major Projects Committee in the fullness of time. The question was page 544, 10.1.5. What are the implications of not upgrading the East Orange drainage channel from McLaughlin Street to March Street? Given the recent tenders for the upgrade of March Street Road, does that have anything to do with that?
Director Greenham.
Good question. That section of the East Orange Channel is prior to the March Street Bridge crossing, so it's integral with the March Street Bridge crossing. But by going ahead with the March Street Bridge crossing, which does have funding, it does provide some alleviation downstream from them, as well as immediately upstream from the development, but without sort of by working from the bottom up rather than the top down, so to speak, you're freeing up section of potential floodwater. So you're improving the drainage system around there. If we were to go from the top down, you'd make an improvement on the top section, but it's constricted by the immediate section below it. So the idea is you start from the bottom and work your way up with the drainage system as you're improving it, and that allows the water to get away. It doesn't mean that we're stopping applying or anything along those lines. As soon as there's identified funding opportunities available, we continue to apply for those. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Greenhalgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of items. The first item is 1221 on page 511, which relates to the inspect the streetscape to identify residential properties that require a tree. My question would be is, out of these 300 trees, how many survive? And I'd just like to bring to the attention one particular street, which is Grace Rise, which is off the Snowy Way. It's a very, very narrow street that services about 23 houses, and I've had some complaints from residents. They normally, to get past there, like each car on the side of the road is up on that soft roll curb and gutter, so that, you know, emergency vehicles could access that. Now we've gone along as a council and we've put all these trees there. It's just created havoc in that street. That's why I raised the question of, you know, how many of these do survive? And, you know, are we building, I know I've raised this with one of the directors once before, are we, you know, ensuring that developers are making the streets wide enough? Because I think from memory, if it's under so many houses that they service, that we can make them that narrow, but this is causing all sorts of problems in that street. So yeah, I just want that noted, and you know, if they can come back to us with how many trees actually do survive. The next one is item 2.113 on page 512, which is the mountain bike trail on Canobolas. I don't think that's something we should just set and forget. I believe there still could be some healthy discussion around that, where, you know, if funding became available, we could do some further investigation to come to a mutually beneficial outcome for our community, because it's a great economic driver. The next one is item 5173 on page 527, which is in relation to the graves at the cemetery. I've noticed that we've completed half of those, which is great to see. But the other issue, and a question that probably to the director, which we could take on notice, I did raise this last summer. We are watering portions of that cemetery with bore water, and it is destroying headstones and making them very, very difficult to maintain and keep clean. I struggle personally to keep my sons in tip-top shape. So for those family members that don't necessarily live in the region, we are actually damaging headstones. So I would like that to be investigated as to why we can't find another water source to water those. The next one is item 7311531, page 531, the Aquatic Centre. And that was in relation to, you know, we're doing the formal report. It would just be helpful when they note these things, if we could note in there when we can expect to see the formal report. Just an estimation of time so we know when that's coming. And my final one was about the purified water recycling, which, you know, how long will that take? And I guess that's about getting funding and stuff for that as well. So they were just a few that stood out to me. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Further discussion, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah. First of all, I wanted to thank the staff for bringing this report. We had an issue that I raised a question about last year, because we didn't have this come as second half of the financial year, the progress report didn't come as a separate item to the council in an agenda, and that then, because it had a number of issues relating to housing policy that I had wanted to find out what the status was, I raised the issue, and it was explained that this progress report goes into the council's annual report, which I acknowledge is the case. The issue last year, though, was, and I went back and looked at this after that meeting where I got that explanation, the annual report didn't come in a council agenda. There was an agenda item on the annual report, but we got the annual report on our desk as a physical copy on the night we were asked to approve it. So we didn't have an opportunity to review these items and to be able to ask questions and discuss them. So I appreciate the staff bringing it in this form this year, and hope we can continue doing that. I wanted to comment on a few as well. I'll try to go fairly quickly. I'm also aware that several of the items, the relevant director isn't here at the moment, and I wish him all the best. But I just need to note a couple of things along the way that, again, are relevant to the issues I'd been monitoring and raising in the past. The first is on page 528, item 5.2.1. The resolution to prepare a homelessness policy that was one of a range of resolutions. I've gone through this at length in a few meetings before, so I'm not going to go through it in detail now, but we resolved back in 2022 to do a whole lot of housing policy work in a whole lot of areas. Some of them were in last year's progress report. That was what I raised before. The homelessness policy is the one that was in this year's progress report. I note that it says, and the comment isn't quite grammatical, so I'm not sure what it's meaning to say, what it was intended to say, but I do know that the New South Wales Homelessness Strategy 2025 to 2035 has been released now. This reads to me like, and we've got a status here of green that we've met our target. We haven't actually done anything. This is just saying that the New South Wales government has released a homelessness strategy. I don't consider this item done. I don't consider all of the housing policy items that were in last year's report done either. I have asked now multiple times for a report on how and when we're going to get all of these things done, and I've asked in the past to confirm that the budget allocation for the housing policy work is still there. I know we've done a little bit on beginning the affordable housing policy preparations now, but there's a lot of work to still be done there. And while they might be marked green in these reports, I don't think we've done what we need. I don't consider them resolved. I'm just moving to my other ones. Similarly, on page 533, 8.1.1, review and update LEP, plans of management and development control plans. Performance measure included formal adoption of a new DCP. We did not get a citywide DCP done in the last term of council. I understand the challenges in getting that there, and that it's been held up, and that it will be worked on at some point. But I, again, think we've got to, we haven't completed that work, and it's really important work. We've talked about planning laws already. Our development control plan is the one that we have direct control over, and there's more we can do to make it better in terms of ensuring that people are required to develop in ways that are sustainable, livable, and that provide the future that we want for our city. I was also going to mention purified recycled water. I do understand that the work is underway, and it does note the project has commenced, and I think there were originally delays in getting the funding agreement finalised from what I understood from staff early on. So I'm, understandable that we haven't got it there, but I think that's an incredibly important one. I think we need to be innovating. We need to be looking at the future of the way we manage water. Is we can't create more water out of thin air. The idea of more storage isn't realistic beyond one or two very specific projects like the Lake Rollins augmentation. Anyone who thinks we, you had 12 years of a coalition government. They didn't get a single major Central West Greens water storage project off the ground. That's because all the good sites for storage have been used already. We need to be looking beyond the 20th century thinking and starting to work on the future of water management, and that is recycling our water. We're already great at demand management. For some reason there are some people who think there are people who talk down what we do with water. We're great at managing demand, but because we've done that really well, we're not going to get more out of that. So things like purified recycled water are going to be really important. Just checking. That I had notes on, but just wanted page 559, 15.3.1, and particularly the second item there, community engagement. Wanted to thank our comms and engagement team. I think we and the community spend a lot of time discussing community engagement and wondering how we can do it better and worrying that we haven't done it well enough. I think we actually have a fantastic team who do their absolute best with it. I think it's a really hard process to do when you've got community who have a whole lot of different ways of wanting to engage, when you've got community who are extremely negative about some in the community, extremely negative about anything council is looking at doing. So I think what we do in a whole bunch of areas, and some of them are listed there in terms of the consultation and community engagement processes we've gone through, are worth acknowledging as being ones that are actually examples of how our team does do some really fantastic work. And I will leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Roddy.
One quick question, probably for Director Maunder. 7321, facilitate the establishment and operation of the indoor play facility through partnership with a selected business provider. The target is to conduct an EOI process, identify needs of businesses to provide facility, support business to implement and operate an indoor play centre. It's marked as met, and I'm wondering, did I miss something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's just the wording of the action item. We did all those things. We did have meetings with businesses. We did run several EOIs. We did try to facilitate the establishment of an indoor playground. So it's a matter of interpretation. So we did all those activities. We haven't been successful in securing a provider for an indoor playground. There's a briefing on Friday as to what other things we might want to do, and we'll bring that to council and work through a couple of those. We still maintain conversations with a couple of parties that have still expressed an interest, and I know one actively is looking for a site, so we're working with them. It's just, it's as I say, a matter for interpretation as to whether that criteria is met or not. So we did all those things, but we haven't been able to deliver an indoor playground. So
this is like prior to the motion that came here. This is like a different action item to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director. Any further questions, councillors? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Mark Councillor Whitten absent for voting, please. Item 5.8. There's a recommendation on page, this is regards to children's services books. The recommendation on page 575, moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Power. In a discussion this item, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came about because I received contact from a number of parents who have children going to a number of our early learning centres, and they were concerned about what happened with Pride Week, and they weren't understanding what was told at Pride Week. And they weren't game enough to come forward because they thought they'd be vilified and persecuted and all that type of stuff that was there. Now, in saying that, I thank the CEO for his report to us on this here, and I would have thought, having a regional library right alongside us, with every book and pamphlet recorded, I would have thought under asset management that we would have a record of all these books that are here that could be there. Because I think one of the concerns with these people was that they didn't have the books in there that weren't age appropriate. Now, if it was Shadow My Pink and Shadow My Purse, well, I don't believe are age appropriate. But what I want to do is read out to you here of another one that I received 2 nights ago. And I don't think it's age appropriate either. But I also believe that there should be other things said as well. But
Councillor, can I ask a question? Is this book located in the facility which you're referring to?
We don't know what books are there. We do not know what books are there. That's what the question was out. I asked for a list, and that list is not provided. Yeah. I can't see why we don't have a list under the asset management process. I'm just telling you the reason why people ask, because they feel as though if they come out and say something, but this parent did say something. And this is what I'm scared of, because it's got to be age appropriate. I've always now, because you've interrupted me, Mr. Mayor, I found it again. This is what it says. Right? I'm not having a go at anyone when I say this is here, but this is just some message here. Our 3-year-old was in bed the other night. She was all of a sudden upset. We asked her what was wrong. And she said, I'm scared that the white fellas will come and get me. I'm sleeping because they took the black fellas' kids from them too. And then she goes on to say that she confronted the room leader about this. She was very defensive and told me, yes, they teach children about stolen generation. I don't think that's age appropriate. That's just me saying. If you're going to say that's age appropriate, why don't you tell them about the tribal wars that occurred around here? Why don't you tell them about the Second World War and the amount of troops that we lost in Papua New Guinea defending our country and all those type of things? I just want to make sure something is age appropriate. I don't think any of these things here, which I can't say that they're not age appropriate with the books, because we don't know what these books are. And it's just an excuse to say, well, how many years we've had to record of these books in our learning centres. I think it's very important, because parents need to know what's available in our early learning centres, because they might want to take their children out and go to somewhere else, or these private ones that are running around. They should be told what's there. As I said, it needs to be age appropriate. And that's why I'm saying that we should have an asset management for those type of things there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Power.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, could we have the name of that book? Instead of just reading one page, there's got to be the name of that book. And I know the name of that book, but it needs to come. It needs to be put on the table. I felt that was disrespectful. Totally disrespectful, sir.
Councillor Duffy, do you want to provide the name of the book so staff can provide... Sorry? Are you able to provide the name of the book?
I don't know what the name of the book is. I'm talking about having a book age respective. The parent has contacted me, and they said they confronted the team leader, and they spoken about something. They said, yes, we teach you about the stolen generation. Now, I don't know what they teach them about, but I'm just going with what the child said, that it's 3 years of age. I don't think it's age appropriate. But until we need names of all the books that are in there, we don't know whether they're going to be age appropriate or what they are. And I think under asset management, we should have a record of those.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. More than happy to support note the report on this. I would like to point out that, the note in here where it says to compile a catalogue of books would require many hundreds of hours of staff time and would require purchase or license expansion of a management system to do so. To my knowledge, council staff have not received a complaint regarding any titles held, and councillors are very welcome to attend the book. So, I'm not arguing with what Councillor Duffy is saying he's received, but it is not. Our early childhood staff, all early childhood staff, do bloody amazing work for industry-wide
bugger all recognition, really.
Language, please, Councillor.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Beep all recognition. It's not our job. Well, I'm certainly not an early childhood. I don't have a master's in early childhood education. I'm pretty sure my colleague over the table doesn't either. It's not our job as council to dictate what books are in our centres. Council as an organisation employs staff who are qualified. They abide by the appropriate regulations and legislation and all of the stuff that governs education. It is it's massive overreach. It is not our job to say what books should and shouldn't be in there. That is not our job. Our job is to support and encourage early childhood education. And I'm with Councillor Power. That was an incredibly offensive thing to bring to the table.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank our council staff, our professional early childhood educators who, as Councillor McDonnell has said, they work hard to do a good job, and the remuneration isn't up to scratch at the moment. I thank the staff for providing the report and the explanation and the photographs of how many wonderful books they've got to choose from to be able to keep the kids entertained and stimulated down there. I encourage any parents of children of any age to stay engaged with their kids' education and find out about what they're learning about and have conversations at home. And if they have concerns about anything that's happening in an education facility, go and speak to the educators. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the Director. If a parent was to speak to one of the staff at a childcare centre because their child had been frightened by a book, any book, what would the procedure be?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we have for any incident with in a childhood early childhood centre, we document the nature of the complaint. It's a documented record, and then the matter's investigated, and then we reply, and then we provide a response back to the complainant on the matter. All of our education is based on early learning frameworks. So early learning frameworks also includes stolen generation education and a wide range of other topics. So that's the governance of the provision of education in those in our early childhood centres, and the books are used to reinforce those teachings under that framework. We wouldn't necessarily withdraw a book just because a individual had a personal dislike for a book, same as we wouldn't necessarily withdraw a book from our library services or take an artwork down in the gallery, or you can draw, but we do have a framework for taking the complaint seriously, investigating it and providing a response back to the complainant.
And then potentially being more conscious with a book that might frighten a child to make the context a little bit different, just to reassure them that that's not going to happen to them. If it happened regularly, you'd have to do that, surely.
We would be very conscious of that particular child's needs, as we are of children have a wide range of needs for a wide range of reasons you can appreciate, and we modify how we teach, instruct, support children given their diverse range of needs. So yes, we'd be conscious of it, certainly.
Yeah, so the systems are in place to deal with that sort of thing. Yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'm happy to close the debate, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you can close the debate, Councillor.
The issue, as far as I'm concerned, is age appropriate, which what the parents are complaining about, what is there.
Councillor, could you, when you sum up, can you choose your words?
I'm just saying the issue is age appropriate.
Thank you.
I'm not having a go at this. I'm not having a go at staff whatsoever. I'm just talking about parents being aware of what is available, what their children at the age that they could be taught by our staff or informed by our staff. And I don't think a child coming home saying that they're absolutely scared at 3-year-old that they could be stolen at night. I don't think, to me personally, that is not age appropriate. Something may be wrong. I don't know, but that's where my question's coming from.
Thanks, Councillor.
I think we should have an asset management record of what books are there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Steadman.
I'll close the debate, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you have to. Sorry, Councillor, you had the opportunity. Okay. Councillor's recommendation in front of us. Can I have a show of hands? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillors, item 5.9, the Resilience Project School Wellbeing Program, recommendation on page 581. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Power.
Happy to second.
By Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion? Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is just an amazing program and project that really is. I've always been a fan of early intervention prevention. I feel this is definitely part of that. And with the report, and I appreciate those who spoke to the motion online too in relation to this this resilience stuff. And as I read through the report, I think it's just a fantastic opportunity for Orange and the schools named here to create that resilience for our young people of this community. When I look at the schools, I think it's fantastic. So, yeah, happy to support this, and thanks very much for the opportunity to actually see a program that really is doing something very wonderful for our young people of this community. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, more than happy to support this. I really appreciate that the project team have also, obviously when we spend money, we as a society spend money, it's always good to know what the effects of that spend has been, and it's really good to have them having this study and having the data to back up and support the positive effects of this program. As someone whose child has partaken in this, and particularly since it started sort of 2021, right sort of hit COVID time, it was kind of perfect serendipitous, really. It was a massive asset, not just individually, but I did notice that the school collectively benefited from it. I do want to say a couple of things, and I understand that there may be some hesitation with taking on, I suppose, what has previously been referred to as, it's not council's role, it's the Department of Education, and it is incredibly disappointing that the state government hasn't, seen their way to supporting this kind of project. But we need to keep the momentum up, and I think this is a really good thing for our community. The other thing, just to touch on something, I think Councillor Peterson asked a question about in terms of the schools that were listed. Not all of them are in our LGA, and I know that there are plenty of people who live and work in Orange, but their kids attend, they might go to Millthorpe for school, Boronor for school, Nashdale, like they're still living and working in our region, but I do note Ben's response about that money, not Orange's money, staying with Orange schools, which I think is important as well. So I'm more than happy to support this. I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further speakers? Councillor Judge.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've just got a question for the Director, if I may, please.
Yes, who are we speaking to here? Yep. Director Maunder, if you'd like to get up, Mr. Maunder.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Participating schools in 23-24, I note that I think 8 of the 11 or 7 of the 11 were outside our LGA, and 2025, half of them once again. Just wondering why we got Bowen, Clare, Glenroy that aren't in the mix in that. Is there any reason for that, and why we're supporting schools out of our LGA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've been providing, as Ben alluded to today, this project for 5 years. So far it's cost council nothing other than staff time. We've supported the project through a range of different grants that we were able to secure over that, and some of them were focused on mental health, some of them were focused on youth wellbeing. That money runs out at the end of this year, so that's why it's come to us. There was always, as we progressed through different grant programs, there were different criteria, and the model moved to a co-contribution model. So the first couple of years we ran it, it was fully funded by the grant money and no contribution from the schools, and those grants changed. And so then it moved to a contribution of $19 a student from each of the participants, and the balance was met by the grant funding. So we were able to continue the project because we didn't have another source of funds to meet the cost. The reflection of the schools and all the schools involved were covered under those grant projects, be they within Orange or outside of Orange. We had a few schools withdraw because of the $19 cost per head to the student. So that's why there's a difference also, and it's a nuance that's not directly apparent in that report, is that the change, one of the changes is from a $19 per student head cost per head of student to a $10 cost per head of student to make it more accessible to the students. And so it really looks like $10, $10, $10 now for $10 from Resilience are kicking in. They're asking for $10 per student from us, and then $10 per student still from the schools. So some schools fund it. Some schools have funds to pay for kids that don't have the means to be able to pay those sorts of fees, same as they do for bus or learn to swim or, excursions, etc. But that was a real reason for why there was a drop-off in the participating schools and why there's been a variation between schools that have participated or not. We've focused or tried to focus on Orange schools given the ask has come to us. So that's some of the... It's a long answer, I know.
Just one other question. Do you know if the Blaney or Cabon are contributing at all towards this, since them schools are in them areas?
I know the ask isn't to cover those schools, as Ben said tonight. He also said tonight that they hadn't yet been approached. So that will be a matter for those schools and how the Resilience Project wants to work with them. So some of those numbers will move around a little bit, and we see that 2,600 participants might look like 2,300 participants when kids actually sign up to it, or it could look like, the numbers will move around a little bit. So we have a final accounting for how many students actually participate in it. But I know that those councils haven't been approached and as yet by the Resilience Project. But the money we would provide were council to consider it in the budget deliberations would be for Orange schools.
Councillor Riley.
Can we get a report of those numbers once that data exists? Any kids take part?
Post.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Sort of post. Were this to proceed?
Were this to proceed? Yes. Would we be able to get a report?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. And breakdown by school.
Great. Thank you.
Councillors, I'd like to. Councillor Greenouch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank council staff for continuing to support this. I remember Wayne Hill was one of the initial instigators of this. I think he was actually working for New South Wales Rugby League at the time, and he was a big driver in securing that first lot of funding. I think the program actually speaks for itself, and I think the numbers that were quoted were that there was a reduction in anxiety by 34% and depression in 47%. Over a 4 to 5 year period. I think that's incredible. And, the evidence speaks for itself. I know my own child, funnily enough, we've been talking about books. A book came up at school about a boy who'd lost his young brother, and it really hit home for my son. He was able to recognise that was going to hit a nerve, but he was also able to recognise that it's part of the curriculum and he had to work through it. So to me, that's evidence that we're building resilience, in really difficult times, because that was also around the time of COVID. So this generation needs a lot of help and support, and I think a commitment to us, because these children are future leaders of our city. And I think it's really imperative that we continue this support and support our future leaders and our future generations. So 100% happy to support. And as I said previously, how do you put a price on, even if this helps to save one life or start a conversation, I think it's done its job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, I would like to propose an amendment, and that would be, if I can get a seconder, if I can speak to it, Councillor Duffy, thank you. I would like to propose an amendment that Council support the applicant in an application writing a letter to the New South Wales Government Department of Education, Council to offer a letter of support with the other mayor from Cabonne and also the local member. It would appear that the government doesn't have an appetite at the moment, according to the Speaker, to allocate appropriate funds to support what is obviously a worthwhile program. So as we see it at the moment, the applicant is forced to come to Orange City Council to help fund what appears to be a very good program, getting good results. I would like to think that what the applicant didn't say, that he'd approach Council to provide a letter of support, or the local member, to perhaps get future funding, whether there's any other opportunities available. I haven't heard that. Rather than come straight to Council and say, look, can you help us? And I understand that because he appears to be at his wit's end. There's no other opportunities available. But I think that we need to, and we've got to the end of the year before we make a decision, maybe the appropriate thing to do would be to speak to the applicant and say, look, we're prepared to offer you a letter of support. Speak to the other mayor who I get on very well with out there at Cabonne, also the local member, who I'm sure would be more than happy to support and offer a letter of support. And he may even be able to speak to somebody in government himself and suggest that this is a worthwhile project. Is there an opportunity rather than cost shifting across to the ratepayer, as we sometimes see? I've got a seconder from Councillor Duffy, so that would be my amendment. Okay, any discussion on the amendment? There being none, I'll put the amendment.
Sorry, can I just?
Yes.
So does that mean that we do that and not support it, or is there some sort of
No,
contingency?
what I'm saying is we defer it until we give the applicant the opportunity to make those inquiries, and then once we have that decision come back to us, then we can revisit it. And as I said, we're only in September now. We've got the end of the year to make a decision. Let's defer it until we have the opportunity to make those relevant inquiries and offer the applicant support and see what comes back. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supporting it. Number one, because I know the state government are working on their budget in November, and that discussion was had with the Minister for Finance, which covers a various number of portfolios last week. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I think we should be aware of the importance of our local member in the numbers game politically. And I think it's a great opportunity to hit home, because I know yourself and myself have been always wary about providing money from local government to things that should be supported by the state government.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ruddy.
A question perhaps to the Director through you. Would deferring it and doing that and waiting on November for budget and whatever affect the program next year? Perhaps answer that bit first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the Speaker mentioned it tonight in his presentation, that it's for planning purposes to know sooner rather than later is certainly advantageous. I couldn't answer as to whether it would cripple 26 or not.
Okay. And I believe it would. You need time to be organised to run programs for next year. I wonder if maybe, Mr. Mayor, you might be open to amending your amendment that we approve this, but also facilitate supporting them to get the state involved for future years so that this can continue without the need to come to Orange City Council consistently without affecting next year's program at all, because I don't believe there's enough time. We know how slow state can be, and November for budgets it's just not enough time if we were to do that. Thank you.
So can I just get you to clarify what you're asking for to me?
That we support tonight's motion and also support to write a letter. Sorry, it's late. It's been a long day. So to also do what you have suggested, but for future years rather than next year.
I'm not prepared to accept the change because I think by accepting the change will give the government the opportunity to not consider the letter because the decision's already been made, purely for that purpose. So I think if we accept this tonight, the government will say, okay, you've accepted it anyway. I still think there is time, providing we do a letter next week. I think we need to put the pressure on the government, whether it's before the budget is heard or not. It's a matter for the government themselves whether they want to hear that argument from us or look at our letters of support. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through you to the Director. Mr. Maunder, was the grant funding done by us? Did we put the application in, or did this other organisation win the grant funding themselves for the program?
The various through Mr. Chair. All the grants were applied for by Orange City Council, and they were all funded by the New South Wales government.
Okay, and the reason that they're withdrawing the grants now is because that program has just finished, is it?
Correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, it's like what I was going to suggest before you move the amendment. It's pretty much Councillor Ruddy said, was that it's 27,500. It seems to be doing a great community service, but we need to go back to the government and get funding rather than using ratepayers' funds for the ongoing purposes of this, because it is going to sound like it's going to be ongoing. So there needs to be some sort of mechanism put in place, unless the state government have got another program in mind, or they've implemented other programs into the schools to replace this already. Those things we need to understand, right? What they're doing. So
forgive me for interrupting. I'm going to leave and join the meeting on Zoom.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mayor. I can't support the amendment that you have moved, and I do have that concern. I mean, if Councillor Duffy's saying the budget preparation start in June, the state government delivers in November, the state government delivers its budget in June next year. So if we're hoping they're going to bring something in the next budget, that's halfway through the year we're being asked to provide certainty for, and that Ben said that they wanted to be able to start talking to schools as they go into term 4 this year to begin locking in plans for next year. So I can't support that amendment. I will foreshadow an amendment which is effectively to move along the lines of what Councillor Ruddy suggested. If your amendment fails, then I will move that we approve items 1 and 2 in the recommendation as it is, and that then as a third item that Council works with the Resilience Project and with our local state member to seek and advocate for state government to support to continue the funding of this program in future years. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. I've got Councillor Greenhalgh online first.
Councillor Mallard, I'm happy to support that if we need to. My question was exactly the same as Maria's, which was what implications would that have in terms of planning? And the last thing we want to see after the work being done is a gap in the program for 12 months and have a bit of a lapse, which will undo all the good work. So totally agree that long term, we need to come up with a more sustainable funding source. But think it's really critical that we do actually support it so we can give some security for them to move forward and adjusting their curriculum ready for next year moving forward. So either way, I'm happy to support Dave if I need to for that foreshadowed amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just clarify, was this for the 1 year or the 3? They're seeking Funding from council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, 1 year.
1 year, thank you. Okay, so there's an amendment there. A show of hands for the amendment. 3, 4, show against. 9, 4. Okay, so the amendment's lost. So we go to the yes, council.
Yeah, so I'd like to move my foreshadowed amendment now. So I'll move an amendment. I don't know if people need me to say it again or if it...
Please do.
Yep. So the amendment now is that the motion, which was the original recommendation, we keep all of that, but we add a third item that that council work with the Resilience Project and our local and approach our local state member to seek his support in advocating for the state government to provide ongoing funding certainty.
For how long?
To provide ongoing funding certainty, but we need to do the lobbying of that. We don't know if we'll get it. I know our state member does good work, but it can sometimes take months. Sometimes it can even take years to get there with things. But I'm basically trying to move something that suggests we do acknowledge as a council this is a priority. It's very distracting to have people speaking in sign language across the table. Sorry.
Sorry, can I just clarify then, Councillor? When you say ongoing, are you just talking ongoing for how long?
Forever.
We are seeking ongoing funding for the program, and we would ideally like that to start next year, but we don't know.
Because the reason I asked the
will.
question is because the last one went for 5 years. Are you seeking another 5 years or?
As long as they'll do.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we ask for a particular funding model, like that was based on grant funding.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
We're just asking our state member to help us advocate. I'm not trying to put constraints on what we advocate for beyond we think this is a good program. We think state government should provide the funding for it.
Yeah. And just
let's work, us as a council. I think the sign language was about let's bring in the other councils as
that's
well.
That's what I was going to ask. My next question was.
Let's incorporate that in as well.
Well done.
Yes, and then and let's acknowledge that we're going to try and partner with everybody and lobby for the fact that while we might be putting the funding up through, or at least considering it in our next quarterly budget review, that ultimately we want the state government to recognise the value of this program and fund it out of their education budget.
Thank you. Before we can...
Excuse me, Dave. Sorry, Miss.
Hang on a sec, please, Councillor. Before we continue, I just need somebody to move that we go for an extra half an hour, if that's possible. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry to butt in, Mr. Mayor. Dave, would you be happy to put in, with those letters of support that we approached the schools to the participating schools to send a letter in to attach with that as well? I think the more support we can get, the better it will be.
Yeah, I think. Yep, happy to incorporate it. Like I think I trust our staff and our leadership to try and get whatever lobbying we can. But yeah, happy to let's include everybody who can put a bit of pressure on to try and get what we want as an outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just based on something that Councillor Whitten said, which was essentially wondering why it was not being funded anymore, because perhaps there was some other program that they're looking at. So could we find out about that as well? Like what the current curriculum arrangements are around that sort of thing, just in case.
Yeah, lobbying.
Oh well, we need to ask, don't we? So.
Thank you. Well, can we take that on notice, sir? Thank you. Okay, we've got a foreshadow. Was it a foreshadow we had?
Just an amendment now.
Amendment,
it
sorry.
Was foreshadowed, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to vote on that. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Duffy, were you for?
Yeah, you can go with it, yeah.
Thank you very much. Unanimous. Okay, we're going to item 5.10, Grieving Mother Statute. Sorry, the amendment now becomes a motion. We're voting on it. My apologies. Show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 5.10, Grieving Mother Statue Update. There's a recommendation on page 595. Can I have a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I accept the fact that what the CWA are saying, and they're a wonderful organisation. They do a fantastic job. But I just want to say that the fact is that I still support a Grieving Mother statue and other things that are going around. Number one, because in that time of the Second World War and probably the Vietnam War and all those wars there, Australia's culture was totally different then to what it is now. And a lot of families, mother was at home looking after 6 or 7 kids, or the case may have been, and some of her older sons were away at the war. And she would get notice that one of them had died. So I think it would hurt the mother more than probably say the father. But I do support something for the grieving mothers as well. But I'm quite happy to acknowledge their letter and their support of what they're after. But I think we should take on board what the culture was at the time. And
okay. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I want to thank the CWA for their response as well, and I particularly like the comment here where they say that if there is that any tribute shouldn't just be to grieving mothers, but to wartime contribution of all local women and their courage, resilience, and stoicism in the face of loneliness and loss. And we would prefer the symbolism to be positive, strong, and hopeful rather than grief-stricken. And I think that's a really, I suppose, positive way of viewing such traumatic loss felt by women and mothers and anyone associated with it. So I thank the CWA for their response. And I also note in the staff comments in the supporting information here about the costs of, say, a steel, spelt incorrectly, but I'll let it go, steel frame timber slatted seat with the Orange Botanic Garden design on the leg casting at each end, and then the Furphy seating park bench at Cook Park. I would also like to sort of raise that we actually have existing furniture sitting at the depot still that used to be in Lord's Place South. So we wouldn't actually necessarily need to, if we were to go and do a bench or a seating place, we could actually use assets we already own and are just sitting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I acknowledge the CWA and their response. This was a motion that was originally put up by me several years ago. At the time, just for background for the councillors, there was I suppose, a desire from council at the time to have an Anzac precinct, hence the new war memorial and the statues there. The statue up near Octec building there of the unknown we learnt about later on.
Which is declaring interest, Councillor?
Declaring interest, yeah. It's not ours, it belongs to the community. And with all of the different, I suppose, memorials that we have around town, there was nothing, some of the members of the committee who were sisters and mothers and wives, widows of service persons, were looking at what Bendigo had done, where they have the grieving mother, and there's some in Canberra, of course. And it's recognising, as Councillor McDonald said, the mothers, the wives that were here and lost loved ones during conflict. So, you know, there's a lot of statues that commemorate and remember, I suppose, the decorations of war, but there's nothing in Orange to sort of to show that war is very painful and lonely and loss, and that's really what that was about. So hopefully in the future we may be able to find a grant or some money to move forward with that, with the cooperation and working with the RSL.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Item 5.11, Register of Delegations, specific appointment update. Recommendation on page 599. Do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Power, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion on this item? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Why do we have to 5.11? Anyway, we've got two. So the second one is regards to the Strategic Policy Review post-exhibition is a recommendation on page 601. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kinghorn, seconded by Councillor Steadman. Any discussion? Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah, I would just like to change this very slightly, page 605, and I did bring this up when it was before it was put out for exhibition. So item 4.1, where the property is tenanted and the council officer advises the tenant of a potential water leak or high water consumption, it's considered that the property owner or the agent will be informed by the tenant. I didn't think that was reasonable at the time. I still don't. So I would like the bit, it is considered that the property owner or the tenant will, or the agent will be informed by the tenant, to be removed and replaced with the property owner or the agent will also be notified. We have their details. It's not really a drama. We're more likely to have their details than the tenants.
I've just asked for a comment from the relevant director, whether they foresee an issue with that. Or at 604.
.10 right down the bottom on the left-hand side.
Yeah, 4.10. Yeah, I was looking at 4.1 go.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer that one. Councillor Kinghorn. So this policy was put up by one of my staff in consultation with me. I don't have an issue with that, with your proposed amendment. I actually didn't see any formal submissions.
Oh, there wasn't a formal submission. This was brought to council, and I did bring the point up at the time.
Okay, no,
just because I don't think it's fair not to let the owner know when the tenant may not tell them. I don't think that's reasonable. So
I think that's fair. So
Okay.
happy to accept that.
All right, and I think I may have moved it, so it's not an amendment. So
Good. All
beautiful.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, councillors? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Councillor Greenhalgh. Thank you. It's frozen for a moment. Unanimous, councillors. 5.12 Strategic Policy Reviews Exhibition 611. There is a recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? By Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Duffy, before we go into close, you had something you wanted to raise?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillors, you're aware that on Saturday there's a rodeo on at Wade Park. Now, I would tend to think that if there's a rodeo on Wade Park, there's nothing coming in front of this council here at all. And we moved a resolution, and I know that Councillor Peterson moved it here, that anything controversial to come in front of this council. Now, the actual running of the show on wherever it is a matter of for operations, but the approval to go to a certain area, especially when it's on a another sporting field, and we've spent millions of dollars at Wade Park, especially on the ground itself. I think there was an extra $600,000 spent some time ago. Now, I do know that there was a rodeo at Emu's ground, and I don't know whether they were approached or not, but I do know that 3 bulls got away from that. Because Daniel Toohey advised me of that, and he worked for the council at the time. And they went along Woodward Street and up, I think, but they managed to get them back. Now, on Wade Park, if that happens, we could be in a spot of bother when you think of what's happened with the horse at Canowindra and killing spectators and all those type of things there. I'm totally against this situation here. I just want to make it quite clear. If there's any damage, we're expecting rain tonight. We're also expecting rain on Friday. Now, you've got 800 kilo plus bulls jumping up and down on the actual ground. They may not be on the cricket pitch, but they will be on the ground. Now, I am aware that we had a lighting show there before, and I'm pretty sure that council issued an account to the lighting company that said, we've got this damage, you'll have to pay for it. And I don't know what the figure was, but there was an account went to them. Now, whether they said jump in the lake or whether they paid it, I'm not 100% sure. But I'm just bringing up the fact that the Rodeo should have came in front of this council for the council to make a decision, irrespective of whether it went either way, yes or no, or go somewhere else. But we have a rodeo and we have a thing out at the showground, and we've got mobile grandstands. So, those ones at Wade Park can be moved. And I was at Wade Park most Sundays during the football season, and there'd be lucky to be a cat, a dog, and 4 people on it. They weren't really used, so they could have been moved. But I do know that there was a rodeo at Wade Park, I think back in the 1960s. But the area and the ground and all those type of things has changed since then totally. I'm just extremely disappointed that it didn't come in front of council. If anything goes wrong, I want nothing to do with it.
Thanks, Councillor. I just might ask for an opinion from Director Maunder here. My understanding is that, and I take your point, Councillor, but I think it was a request from the Bull company to have that ground in Pacific. But I think, and I'm reasonably well aware of this issue, but I think at the end of each football season, council do something with their ground anyway to rejuvenate it after the football season to prepare for the cricket season. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Director, is that there is a huge amount of sand which is going to be used for those bulls to operate on. And that sand, and you may be able to quote the figure, but the sand which is going to be used is a multi-purpose sand, is what we would normally use to resurface a cricket field, so which could be a considerable cost saving to council. Are you able to comment on that?
I am, Mr. Mayor. So this event, just briefly, given the hour, came to council through our events team, and then our events team, as they do with all events, is consider all the risks and all the planning around that. Engage with our groundkeepers. I don't think there's anyone that cares more about our grounds or knows more about them than our groundkeepers. So they assess the risk of the actual event through all the different areas. The one in particular around potential damage to the ground, you are correct. We do have a rehabilitation program every year after the football season. Most recently, we purchased a phrase mower a few years ago, which basically takes the entire top of the field off for grass. And if you were to look at it, it looks like dirt. But then the grass regrows through that period, so that's a rehabilitation program. The sand that's being brought in is 60 tonne of sand. That's actually the same sand that we use to top dress the fields. It is also the same sand that from Yagara that is the sub base for the new sports fields. So the process will be put down matting on the field, bring in the vehicles, unload the sand, conduct the event. At the end, you reverse all that. We stockpile that sand, so that sand will be used at that site and other sites across the city, and then we rehabilitate the fields. But you are correct in that if there is any damage to the fields, then it's a matter for PBR. PBR also is a well-recognised organisation, professional outfit, and their image and reputation is of paramount importance to them, and the safety and the conduct of their events. They've been very professional in all the documentation that they've provided to us, and so we've assessed it in that regard. The last thing they want is bad press. So if there is damage to a field or a precinct, they will do everything within their power to rectify that. So on the balance of all of that, we were happy with the risk, and then the approval for the event was provided. we didn't think it was a controversial matter to come before council. I understand that other people will have a different opinion about that. That was the assessment that we made at the time, which we do every day.
The question to the director.
No. Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Duffy as our representative in the bull riding event.
Wow.
Can that?
Grandkids and sons that do ride bulls.
No insurance, mate. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say it.
Councillor Duffy, I just...
The question is, was the ODCA asked about the...
Councillor, I've allowed you to ask the question initially, but a question must not be asked at a meeting of council unless it concerns a matter on the agenda, and this wasn't on the agenda. Well, notice is given in accordance with clause 310 and 3.14. So, as you know, I'm a bit of a stickler for process, but thank you for your question earlier. Okay, we're going into close now, councillors. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any advertised item for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There have been no submissions, Mr Mayor.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Local Government General Regulation 2021, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred to in Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in confidential session of Council, meeting and closed to the press and public. Item 6.1, National Local Roads Transport Infrastructure Congress, held on the 11th and 12th of November 2025. Call for council's attendance is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A2F. Matters affecting the security of council, councillors, council staff or council property. 6.2, Submission Redaction Report of the 16th of September 2025 is classified confidential under provisions of Section 10A2E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice maintenance of law. Can I have a mover and seconder that we're going to... Yes, Councillor Duffy moved and seconded by Councillor Power. Now wait for to be moved into closed section of the meeting.